We humbly acknowledge our shortcomings and ask for forgiveness of all those thoughts and deeds that were not pleasing in your sight. Lord, we also ask you to be with our current and newly elected officials. We ask that you give them wisdom and discernment as they make decisions that affect our lives. We ask that you be with our president, our Congress, our state officials, our mayor, and all of our elected local officials. Lord, we ask you to be with our city employees, and especially those that risk their lives every day on our behalf. We also pray for your strength and comfort for all the survivors and families of those that lost their lives in recent California fires, the shootings in Pittsburgh, in California, and other acts of violence around our country. We also pray for our current military servicemen and women and all those veterans that have gone before. Finally, Lord, we acknowledge that we were created in your image. That image is not defined as male or female, black or white, or any other physical attribute. We are created in your image of love. The Bible states that we are to love you and love each other, and help us to keep that commandment so others will know us by our love. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you all for being with us tonight. This would be very unlikely, but in the unlikely event that we would need to exit the building from this room, we have these two exit doors, and there's an exit door from my room to the right. In that event, please do not use the elevator, but just take the two stairways down and then the one stairway out the front door. Just wanted everybody to be aware of that. Okay, I was going to introduce a special guest, but he's not here just yet, so I'm going to come back to that. And the next thing, since we don't have any public hearings, is to ask for approval of our city council minutes. They didn't get sent out, so we're not going to approve them. Yeah, we're going to defer. Do you want a motion to defer them?
Yes.
Yeah. We have a motion to defer and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. I can't believe we're here this quickly, but we're going to move right forward after I give one other acknowledgement to our citizens' participation period. I did want to acknowledge Mr. Gene Zerlo is with us this evening, and we just passed at Ways and Means and our earlier real estate committee meeting amendment to a planned unit development agreement that was in existence for some time. And Mr. Zerlo and his partners have been so kind to donate the land upon which the North Pitchfork will be built on Johns Island. And getting that road finished is really important for transportation on and off Johns Island. And so, Mr. Zerlo, if you would stand, I just want to thank you publicly for doing that. Thank you. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of folks who have signed up for, we have 35. We do try to keep it to 30 minutes. Got 35. I'm going to ask you to keep your remarks to 1 minute, please. And Madam Clerk will call out a group of about 4 or 5 people at a time. And when you hear your name, just go ahead and come to either microphone, and we'll cue you up and welcome your comments to council.
We'll have Muhammad Idris, Mark Daniels, Jim Anthony. Is this Samarinda Siri? Okay. Leah Cabela.
Okay.
Muhammad Idris. Soberness is needed here in the city, in this city council. I must say without any reservation that you all are drunk. You all voted to apologize to the African American people when our country had already did so in 1965. Are you all saying that Charleston just is returning to the Union, since it was the city that fired the first shot to start the Civil War? This act of you all is like a man who's punch drunk and has defecated all over himself and got the whole area smelling like a skunk. Also, when you all went to Netherlands to find an expert to solve the flooding problem, in Charleston, you did the same thing you did to the Civil Rights Bill that were established in 1965. You defecated on the Constitution of this great country, America. And our councilperson of the 6th District who introduced the petition for the council to sign.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. I'm here to speak about
your name, please.
Okay. James Anthony, Jim Anthony. I live in Charleston, West Ashley.
Okay.
I'm here to speak about the proposed plastic reduction ordinance that's coming up, today's meeting. So I have this written down. Plastic is a man-made product. Every bit of plastic that has ever been created still exists today. We as a planet have dug ourselves into a very deep hole when it comes to plastic. Will Rogers said, if you find that you have dug yourself into a deep hole, the first thing you do is stop digging. Change is hard, but we as a society have made changes in the past. Consider how prevalent smoking was in our culture in the past. One can Google old TV shows such as Johnny Carson and you can see people smoking. It was everywhere. Today, it is rare to find someone smoking. We did not realize the harm. I'm done?
Yes, sir. Oh, thank you very much.
I could go on. I'm sorry.
That's okay. All right, are you Jim? Jim?
Mark Daniels.
Mark, okay.
Hi. Thank you for having me here today. And I'm the Senior Vice President of Sustainability for Novalex. Novalex is a company that manufactures the world's largest manufacturer of plastic retail bags, paper bags, food service. We have 50 United States manufacturing facility, and we call Hartsville our world headquarters. Banning products like this really is kind of, it's counterintuitive to what the statistics say. Plastic bags account for 0.3% of all municipal solid waste. According to the Ocean Conservancy that does litter pickup, it's less than 1.5%. To give you an example, this is the amount of bags that would be picked up annually in Charleston. 77% of these bags are reused for home conveniences, such as picking up after your pest, picking trash can liners. It's substituting the more expensive, heavier gauge plastic ones that you would have to buy. I just want you to seriously consider, our company does circular economy. We built 2 recycling facilities, so if you take bags, we'll recycle them all, 50 million pounds a year. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Samarendra Singh. I live in West Ashley along with my wife. We have been married for approximately 50 years, so I'm proud to be a Charleston citizen. I'm a retired professor of social psychology and sociology. Try to dedicate as much time as possible for people's service. First of all, I'd like to thank each and every council members and our respected mayor for your service and dedication to the people of the city of Charleston. And I have a feeling that, hopefully I'm correct, that you are, are above any kind of trivial personal animosity of politics. So I kindly urge you to kindly look into your heart and put the interest of the people of the city of Charleston, the environment we live in, and the sea creatures we depend upon, or we do not depend upon, but we do respect, because we have learned how to live in love and harmony. So please pay attention to that, and I will be grateful to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Leah Colabello. I own a business here in Charleston. I'm also a member of Low Country Local First, and I wholeheartedly support this ordinance. It appears some of you may have seen my TEDx Charleston talk about the dangers of plastic pollution in our environment, and if you haven't, I encourage you to check it out. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you considering this ordinance and voting in favor of it.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now have Stuart Weinberg, Emily Zedra, Nita Weiss, Andrew Wonderly, and Treya Tavermina.
Thank you, Stuart Weinberg, Charleston. First, I'd like to publicly thank the mayor for organizing the vigil after those horrendous murders in Pittsburgh and what he did to bring this community together. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. But I'm really here tonight because I am the community member to the Resilience and Sustainability Advisory Committee that passed last week the proposal to bring to the City Council regarding environmentally acceptable packaging and products. You know, last month, the European Parliament, the entire European Parliament, voted to ban single-use plastic bags across the board in its attempt to stop almost 70% of the pollution that's going into the oceans. If they did it, if Mount Pleasant has done it, if Folly Beach has done it, isn't it time for us to do it? And if anyone has any questions regarding how businesses are being able to function without single-use plastic bags, please visit the businesses on Folly Beach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Emily Sedzo. I'm the director of the Land, Water, and Wildlife Program for the Coastal Conservation League. I'm here tonight as a proud partner of the city with many others who are here as well. We've worked with you all for nearly the past 3 years, identifying data and looking at the problem that plastic pollution has posed in the city of Charleston. We've also done 2 surveys, extensively reaching out to businesses and residents with overwhelmingly positive feedback for a policy solution to plastic pollution. I have to tell you that this matter is urgent and it's timely because preemption is lingering at the state legislature, and we are here to support you along the way as you consider this through potential transition and implementation. So thank you all very much for your leadership.
Before Ms. Weiss speaks, I'd like to thank her and commend her. She's the leader of our Sister Cities International organization and just recently successfully conducted a trade mission to Panama City, Panama. And so thank you and congratulations for that.
Thank you for the opportunity. So yes, Nita Weiss, Charleston Sister Cities International. I'm here this evening to use my minute to let you know that you have now on your desk the press release for our trade mission, which hopefully will generate importing and exporting opportunities between the Charleston area, our state, and Panama City, and also open up some logistical and help promote our port, okay, within Panama as an alternate to Savannah. I got a call today from Qatar who would like to see if they could move forward in doing a sister city with us, but I'm also here to see if in our next meeting we can complete our Barbados sister city partnership with Speightstown and make that official before we go into next year. And I'm hoping that we can add the Netherlands, Rotterdam, because of their flooding and resiliency best practices that we can certainly benefit from as a sister city next year. And Fleur, okay. Flair, yeah. Yes, and Bremenhaven, Hamburg, in Germany, and Sweden. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Thayer Tavermina. I'm a 12-year-old 7th grade student at Lang Middle School of Science and Technology. We recently completed a sea level rise project in Mr. Lynn's science class. While researching for that project, I learned that if left unaddressed, sea level rise could change the physical appearance of the Charleston area, slow down our local economy, and could negatively impact tourism. It is a real problem that needs to be addressed now before it is too late. Just like sea level rise, the use of single-use plastic bags could have a negative effect on our community. I once heard that the lifespan of the average bag you pick up at the grocery store is about 12 minutes. However, the microplastics could last for up to 1,000 years. Plastic bags are usually not properly recycled. They often end up littered on the side of the road, on beaches, or in the ocean. Switching to reusable bags is a small change that could have a big impact on our future. I think the plastic bag ban should be implemented in Charleston, South Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wonderly.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, my name is Andrew Wonderly and I'm your Charleston water keeper. We do a lot of cleanups and almost everything we find is convenience plastic items, bags, foam cups, foam containers, and the like. Last year, we mobilized more than 1,500 volunteers and put them out in the marshes, out in the creeks, out on the rivers. And if you multiply the time they spent doing cleanup work by the federal volunteer rate, we provided almost $100,000 worth of cleanup services to this community. I'll make a couple of more points real quick. We've been a part of 3 of these efforts here locally. This, by far, has had the best outreach to both locals and business owners alike. So I'm really proud of the city for what it's done to reach out to the community. Also, I think this ordinance is really smart, right? It's very narrowly tailored to get after the types of debris that we find locally here during cleanups. And it's also tailored to get after the types of material that cannot be recycled in your blue roll carts. Again, I'd like to urge the timeliness of this. The time to act is now. The preemption bill is coming, and it's coming fast. So the time to act is now, today, and we urge you to vote in favor of this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Thomas Lynn, Zach Bearden, Leslie Armstrong, Kyle Huntmaker, and Amy Cafe.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Leslie Armstrong. I live in James Island. I'm here as a restaurant owner and a grandmother. And my partners and I, who own the restaurant together, would make a bigger profit if we didn't use eco-friendly products. But how would we live with ourselves? We care about our planet. We care about our family's health. So we're willing to lose a little bit of profit. We're all in this together, and we need to think forward. We don't need to think backwards. We don't need to think short term, we need to think long term. I'm a grandmother. 3 of my grandchildren live in Charleston. I'm not going to be affected so much by plastic and what it's going to do to the environment and to my health, but my grandchildren will be, and their children will be, and I care about them. So let's not think short term, let's think long term, and please ban these single-use plastic bags and styrofoam. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
I'm Tom Lynn. I'm a 7th grade science teacher at Lang Middle School. There is my student. And we did just complete a project on sea level rise. One of the things we learned was that it seems to be one of those issues where you kick the can down the road and everybody wants to do it the next time around. And one of the statistics we found in our research was that we have about 12 years before we can't really have a direct impact on sea level rise. I think the same thing is true of plastics. I would like to see the City Council ban plastic utensils, styrofoam, anything like that. I think the plastic bag ban is a good thing, but I'd like to see you take it even further and go for plastic utensils, styrofoam, anything that's going to wind up hurting the environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Zach Bearden. I own a property at 838 Morrison Drive. I'm a real estate developer. We're developing a project called Morrison Yard, and I'm here this evening to support staff's proposed amendment to the UP zoning ordinance. The amendment is to require affordable housing as a prerequisite for residential projects in the Upper Peninsula, and we feel that this is appropriate as it's proposed. It's something that underwrites to today's market conditions, and we feel that this being an incentive-based zoning district, it allows for the support of affordable housing. And I also wanted to just note that this is a very technical ordinance, the UP. It's incentive-based, and really before it's amended, it really should be studied. But I am here tonight because this needs to occur, and others that come into the city that want to develop residential housing in the UP should you have a affordable component. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Amy Caffey. I live on James Island, and I'm here to support the ban against single-use plastic bags and containers. There are a lot of really difficult problems that our society faces, and I think it's a really simple, easy way to make a tiny step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Hey, my name's Kyle Huntmaker. I live here in Charleston. I'm also here for the bag ban, just to add my voice to the many. The creeks and the marshes are a very important part of the city of Charleston. It's why many of us choose to live here. It's why many people choose to visit here and spend their money here. The Low Country is going to be here long after all of us, and as stewards, I think it's important that we pass the bag ban. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Next is Michael Cox, Holly Knight, or Kite, Ryan Cockrell, Caitlin Cornwell, Betsy LaFawn, and Kevin Sardoro, something like that. It says print.
If you heard your name called, just come on forward to the microphone. Yes,
my name is Ryan Cockrell. I'm a business owner here on Broad Street, and I'm here to talk about the plastics ordinance. I'm fully in support of reducing plastics, especially the single-use plastics, so please do vote in favor of the ordinance. And I think this is a great idea for Charleston. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Cornwell. I moved here. I'm a student studying environmental law, and I moved here to be involved with the coastal and environmental issues that are going on here. I strongly believe that Charleston should pass this ban on plastic bags, styrofoams, and straws. This is a very exciting time in this state, with cities, towns, and municipalities all over the state taking part in the ban on bags. If Charleston were to partake in this ban, we would be the biggest city in the state to do so. This is an extremely important opportunity for the city to take advantage of, and I truly hope that we can follow through and set the precedent that big populous cities such as this can pass bans too. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor Teckenberg, members of City Council. My name is Betsy LaForce. I'm a project manager with the Coastal Conservation League, in full support of the ban on plastics, but also wanted to show our support tonight for the creation of the new Stormwater Management Department. Flooding in our built environment is such a huge issue for our community, as we all know, and it warrants its own department for planning, regulation, and oversight. This is an opportunity to establish a new department that's both progressive and proactive in addressing existing stormwater challenges and planning for new initiatives as our region continues to grow. In the face of our current reality of sea level rise and storm events, we must be vigilant in planning for the future and protecting the quality of life of our citizens. So we look forward to the opportunity to work with you and the community to establish the vision and goals for what this department will be working on. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
My name is Kevin Giordano. I am a resident of West Ashley the past 13 years, and I'm here to support the Aquatic Center, the proposed Aquatic Center that's going to be happening in the West Ashley corridor. And I'm excited about this particular endeavor because one of the things that we find is we want to get people out of the house, we want to get people active, we want the community to come together, and I believe that the Aquatic Center would be a great benefit to the city of Charleston, specifically West Ashley. It's time for us to continue revitalizing West Ashley. There's a lot of movement, but this is one of those areas that will be an anchor for us as we not only grow West Ashley, but also the tourism and all the support that will be coming from out of state to our local economy. So I'm in favor of the Aquatic Center. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Michael Cox. I'm a resident here at Charleston on James Island. I've been here for 11 years, owned a home for 8 years there. And yeah, this is just, I'm also here to support the ban on plastic bags. And the thing is, it's just it's a simple, reasonable, easy, well-written, logical first step to take care of a problem that's absolutely worse every time we look around. You know, you look at your phone, you've got warnings for high tides because we're going to have flooding, you know? And yeah, this is not going to fix that, but it's the first step to start moving progressively towards that type of thing. So it's an easy first step, but it's an absolutely necessary one, and we've got to start now. So I hope you guys consider that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Holly Kite. I'm actually new to the area. I moved from South Georgia, if you can't tell. But I work with an oyster recycling program here in Charleston, and we work with local restaurants to take that recycled shell and apply it back into the water column. And I can say with working with these restaurants that we find lots and lots and lots of single-use plastics. And so that means it is also just by lack of the amount of people who can take it out. You know, we don't have, you know, it would be so much easier for this to be a ban and us still trying to do the right thing. And then also as a member of the society, like already tried to not use single-use plastics, but sometimes people in restaurants, it's just like proper etiquette to give you a straw, you know. And so you know, we're not able to like speak them before they give us one before, then it's just going to get thrown away anyway. So I think it would make it easier for us as a society to say no if it was already banned. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I was a little nervous.
Appreciate
it.
Yeah. Okay. Joe Moran, Jack Mars, maybe, Elena M. Pugh, David Quick. Okay, so Kelly, maybe? Yes. Okay.
Tom Wilson. Okay. That's enough? Yes, sir.
Yes.
Good evening, Council. I'm David Quick. I've lived here 30 years. I've run all those 30 years. I've also been a bike commuter. Lately, I've been paddleboard around Charleston and kayaking. And I can attest to the amount of single-use plastic in our waterways. And it's really bad. And I hope you will support this ban on single-use plastic. It's very important. A lot of people aren't going to do it on their own, and future generations are going to depend on this decision tonight. And I urge you, if you are thinking about voting against this ban, to join one of the many pickups that are held monthly with Surfrider or Waterkeeper, Keep Charleston Beautiful, and you will see for yourself. So please, please support this ban. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Joe Moran, and I live West Ashley. And first, let me say how proud I am to live West Ashley, and really happy to see all of the good things going on over there. And I'm here also to speak for the Aquatic Center, and would love to see that as an addition to the West Ashley area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Alina Bugas. Apologies for my voice today. I am a marine biologist representing a small business here in Charleston. I grew up here. I live on James Island. During my time at the College of Charleston, earning my undergraduate degree, I researched microplastics in the marine environment. I looked at oysters, fish guts, shrimp, sand from all the local beaches, ocean water, seafoam, and my research question quickly changed from if there are microplastics and plastics in these samples to how many pieces were in these samples. So I strongly urge that this ban gets passed, and I think it is a great step in the direction moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Jack Moore, longtime resident of the West Ashley area of our city, and I'm here to speak in favor of our proposed wellness and aquatic center. We're just excited about all the wonderful things that are taking place in West Ashley, and we believe this thing would just be a tremendous boom to our city, especially our young people and children and our whole community. So I hope you'll look favorably upon it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Kelly Thorvaldson, South Carolina Aquarium. Thanks for the opportunity to speak about the plastic reduction ordinance. The South Carolina Aquarium has experienced a frightening increase of sea turtles coming into our hospital with plastics that they've ingested in our hospital. It is frightening how quickly those have increased. It's the same thing we're seeing along our roadsides and waterways. And unfortunately, more research is coming out that it's in the entire marine food chain, from plankton, the basis of the food chain, to whales. And there's a growing scientific concern about the ingestion of plastics by humans. And so it is a big problem. The aquarium has a litter tracker, and it's been providing us with great insights into what is polluting our local environment. And at the top of that list is plastics, and the majority of those plastics are the single-use types of plastics that are named in this ordinance. And so more research shows that legislation of this type works to reduce this type of litter. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Beatrice Bernier, Anna Zimmerman, Phil Dustin, Anna Catherine Carroll, Leah Farrell, Will Pate, Pam Ferguson, and Justin Fiera.
Beatrice. Yep. Okay. Beatrice Bernier, downtown. I applaud the initiative for plastic ban. I'm for this. That's very good. But this said, you have an issue with flood and development in this city. And once again, I'm going to ask that you provide all the information necessary to the CAV report. You are going to be given a month to give the information for the close to 1,100 substantially damaged properties as a result of the last 3 flooding events, and you are missing dozens of it, I'm pretty sure. And I think also you have a lack of budget still. Very good initiative. You are finally maybe creating a flood department with your stormwater and flood department. Very good. Doesn't mean it will have the means and the money to do serious work and a serious budget. If you have to take out 5% of your budget overall, you are discussing budget now for the city, be serious as far as what is flooding and flooding infrastructure. You've developed in downtown along the Murray Boulevard. It's a co-development between the city and Mr. Murray 100 years ago on the badland field, and you have multi-properties that are going flood and flood again.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Was your name called? Anybody here had your name called?
Okay, you go on.
Back over here.
Hi, I'm Will. I'm a 7th grader at Lang, and I wanted to start off by saying that we're all child murderers. So I was reading some information, and something that I really thought about was that usually in a mother sea turtle lays 110 eggs at a time. About 50 of them hatch, and eventually, and when they hatch, they have to obviously get to the ocean, and about 1 of them survives either because of seagulls or plastic bags. And so my dad right over there, he's a terrible guy, absolutely awful, really mean guy. He might not care about some baby sea turtles, but if I think that if it was me, he would care. Probably not my sister, but me.
And he looks just like his mother.
A tough ride home right there.
Well, look at his face, and then look at her face. I think he has a ride home.
Thank you, young man. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Will. So my name is Anna Zimmerman. I'm on James Island, and in late July, 3 of us wrote a 17-page letter to FEMA SCDNR. As scientists do, we laid out the data of an astounding number of FEMA non-compliance issues, illegal variances, violations of the city's own ordinances, state federal building code violations, issues that have and are ongoing in the city of Charleston. 17 pages of data, research, and facts. Facts that speak for themselves, facts that cannot be disputed. Opinions are not facts. Within days of our 17-page letter, Mayor Tecklenburg put on a hard hat and went on the local TV news and said, direct quote, "In the meantime, I can assure you and the citizens of our city that we are in full compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program." When provided with the facts, a photo op was staged. It happened. Within a few weeks on August 30th, 2018, Mayor Tecklenburg had in his hands a letter from the South Carolina DNR, and its letter stated that the city of Charleston was in fact in non-compliance with National Flood Insurance Program. So it has come to our attention that this letter was not widely shared or shared at all with City Council. And I will leave you with that, and also with my opinion. The letter is in there, as well as more facts. I had a conversation for 45 minutes today with Jessica Arts, who wrote the original letter at South Carolina DNR, and she has informed us that the city of Charleston has far more problems than our 17-page letter.
I'm Philip Dustin. I live on Johns Island in the city of Charleston. Whereas stormwater flooding is a product of overdevelopment, which the city has created, whereas residents that have lived their entire lifetimes are now getting flooded out by new developments sanctioned by the city of Charleston, their wells going dry, their septic systems failing, and in some cases their houses are subsiding, the city of Charleston keeps allowing more deforestation, more infilling, more impervious surface production in the quest for more development. The water balance of the land is being destroyed. The city cannot build or engineer its way out of this problem as long as it keeps allowing it to continue unabated. Terrorism is defined as the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in the pursuit of political aims, or the unnecessary or unjustified destruction of the environment for personal or corporate gain. Therefore, be it known that the City of Charleston is committing environmental terrorism upon its citizenry. The City of Charleston is presently under FEMA investigation for violations. How big? During the Jim Crow period, big business enslaved black citizenry with the blessings and collusion of the local state governments. It took the federal government to stop it. Big business, now developers, is doing the same thing.
Wrap up.
When will it stop?
Thank you.
As a matter of protocol, I thought we had agreed, if anybody had a document handed out, it would be you first.
Right.
That is correct.
That's correct.
We'll ask future.
That's correct.
To do that.
Got a document to hand out, give it to the clerk, please, first.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Leah Farrell with the Preservation Society of Charleston. I just want to address two things really quickly. The first is the bill that amends the number of votes required by council to override a planning commission decision. When last before you, the council deferred this for discussion to include city staff, stakeholders, planning commission. We really appreciated being part of that discussion. It was a good conversation. We thought it was the beginning of a conversation, so we were really surprised to see it on the agenda tonight, and we do not support this as proposed. The second item, obviously, is the creation of the new Stormwater Management Department. We're pleased to see the city take this important step forward on flood mitigation in our built environment. However, we do ask that you keep a watchful eye on this transition to ensure the creation of this department is supported by an action plan, thoughtful deliverables, qualified staffing, and of course, really thoughtful coordination with city planning staff. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Anna Catherine Carroll, also with the Preservation Society of Charleston. The Preservation Society is supportive of the proposed amendment to the Upper Peninsula Zoning District to strengthen workforce housing requirements. Our city needs a public realm that benefits from the height and density bonuses utilized by developers in the UP district, and affordability is top priority. This proposal is a proactive step toward getting workforce housing opportunities in this district where they need to be. We are hopeful that this amendment will work effectively to address the issue of workforce housing in the Upper Peninsula District, and we ask for your support this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Pamela Ferguson. I commute by bike over the Ashley River Bridge, and this summer I decided to stop maybe once a week or so and pick up plastic along my way home, and I've never had to bring a bag with me because I've been able to just pull as many plastic bags out of the marsh as I need to fill with other plastic trash. Despite doing this all summer, when we went there to clean up for the beach sweep, river sweep, we pulled out dozens of plastic bags, hundreds and hundreds of pieces of styrofoam. It just doesn't seem to end. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Justin
Ferreira.
Colleen Condon after Justin. And that's it.
I'm Justin Ferreira. I'm a member of the West Ashley Revitalization Commission with 4 councilmen. I'm CEO of the Sane Group, a real estate investment and development firm, and a member of Surfrider as well. I've had a lot of experts talk to you about scientific ecosystems, but we also have an economy which is an ecosystem as well of consumers and suppliers. And Charleston, as you enter, says it's an all-American city, and the harbor speaks to that as well. People come here and demand clean waters, beautiful buildings, and in West Ashley are trying to drive revitalization. You don't do that with tumbleweeds. They look cool in John Wayne movies, but when they're permanent and never go away, they drive folks off as well as investment. I think last Tuesday, folks spoke and told, the electorate spoke and said we don't want oil in our oceans. We don't want plastic bags either. I ask for you all to be pioneers. Don't be an asterisk. This will pass. It may pass tonight. It may pass in a year. But it'll pass unanimously. So I ask you to be pioneers and step up and get that done tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, I'm Colleen Condon. I'm president of the Alliance for Full Acceptance, which is a gay rights organization here in Charleston. I would like to thank you for your leadership on the hate crimes ordinance that's being proposed tonight. I think it is a wonderful step forward to show that in the holy city, we're looking out for each other and making sure to take these matters seriously. Of course, we all know the state should do it, but thank you for leading the way, and hopefully the state of South Carolina will follow your lead. And certainly I appreciate your work on the stormwater plan. Thank you.
So since we had a number of folks come tonight to speak about the plastic ban, could I just ask that a show of hands if you came here to support the ban on plastic bags? And just to be fair, anyone who came against the ban? Yes, sir. Got you. We got you. Thank you, sir, for coming. Your voice was heard. Yes, sir. Councilmember Moody.
I don't know that it's appropriate. I'll ask for your, there were a couple people that came up and spoke that I would like to ask some questions. Will they be available when we take up this ordinance, or would it be now?
Regarding the plastic bags, if they wait around, we've only got one matter before we take up the
I mean, rather than getting too far out, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to leave, but
right.
A couple things were said. I would like to question what they meant.
Okay, sure. If they're still here, we'll be glad to do that.
The first one was the lady that spoke from the aquarium.
Good behind you, Bill.
Yeah, my question, you probably need to come up to the microphone. My question, you talked about plastic, and then at the very end, you made a comment that you didn't just say plastic bags. You said plastic most of the time. At the end, you said plastic bags. What did you mean by that? What was the context of that statement?
So I believe you're referring to the litter tracker. So there are members of this citizen science app. When they pick up litter, they enter the debris type into this litter tracker. And there, if you are looking at a pie chart, the biggest piece of the pie is plastics. If you break down that biggest piece of the pie, it's overwhelming. The majority of that pie or piece of the pie is single-use plastics, which include plastic bags, styrofoam, and straws, which are
so it's not just the plastic bags, it's a whole bunch of things.
It's not. It is, I mean, bottles and bottle caps and food wrappers are very, very high numbers, but it's a little more difficult to ban plastic water bottles or any kind of drink bottle and food wrappers than it is to ban straws, the styrofoam containers and bags. And I actually pulled some numbers from that litter-free digital journal, and just in the city of Charleston, since we have had this app, there have been, and that's maybe close to 2 years, not quite 2 years, but 457 bags have been found just in the city of Charleston, and that's a fraction of what is out there not being found, or what is being picked up and thrown away during litter sweeps that are not tracked as part of the litter-free digital journal. So I'm not sure where the number that you're getting from, but we are seeing it.
I'm just trying to quantify, because what my understanding of the real plastic problem, the big plastic problem, comes from clothing that's as the polyester and other types of fabrics are washed, that comes out, and that's the microscopic type of stuff that's out there that's really doing a lot of damage. The other one is the stuff that goes into tires that's on roads that's, again, a huge polluter of that.
Correct.
So those are probably the two largest plastic.
If you were to group those microplastics together, then possibly. I just know what is being input into the litter-free digital journal, which is what's being picked up from our roadways and our water and our marshes, not from in water so much.
Okay, thank you. The other, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. The other one was the gentleman that I think from Waterkeepers.
Mr. Wonderly.
He's still here. Yes, sir. Hey, how you doing? Thank you for being here. I wanted to, you made a comment about by far when you went out and picked up stuff.
Right.
That by far the biggest thing in the water was the plastic bags. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
So plastic material, and to be clear,
wait a minute. Plastic bags or plastic material?
Well, let me give you some of the data. So the Citadel's done a bunch of good research on this, and they took the beach sweep, the National Beach Sweep River Sweep data, and what they did was parsed it out by the types of materials they were finding. And what I said was by far the most what we find is largely plastic convenience items. And that bears out in the Citadel's research as well. You find plastic bottles, bottle caps, food wrappers, styrofoam, and plastic bags. So those are the 5 most common types of plastic debris in our waterways based on research from the Citadel. I can tell you too that we seem to be a bit of a hotspot for styrofoam. The scientists even have a name for it. They call it the sweet tea effect. We like our sweet tea, and a lot of times it comes in that styrofoam cup. And I can tell you sort of anecdotally too. And anecdotally, you know, we do find a lot of styrofoam here. It breaks apart real easily into little pieces. And just to follow up too quick, the Citadel research also looked at how quickly that material breaks down. And what they found was rather striking. I think there's been this misconception that plastic debris sort of exists forever in the environment and doesn't break down. But those bottles, bottle caps, bags, styrofoam, all of that, 4 to 6 weeks is what the Citadel research found before it started to shed into microplastics. And that's why it's so important to get the material out, but also to take action on at the community level to keep that material from ever getting into the water in the first place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have one more, but I'll save it to the regular. I just want some clarification on what they were talking
Terrific.
about.
So, okay, so next on our agenda is the presentation regarding the economic impact of the Wellness and Aquatic Center complex. And Councilmember Wagner, you're on.
Only for a minute. All right. A couple weeks ago, I talked to you, and we talked in front of our friends at Rec Committee. We talked here. They're passing out the little package that they're going to show you on the film, the slide presentation. It was going to originally be by Dr. Rob Carey, who did from Clemson, who actually did the economic impact statement on this wellness center, aquatic center. But since I've not seen this particular set of slides, if you would allow me, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Peter Lamott, that will walk you through this quick presentation.
Mr. Peter?
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
There are some slides that are hopefully on the screen.
Sir. Sir.
Hopefully.
If not, I'll just start.
It's thick. Speak right in the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Oh, thank you.
It's clicker.
That'd be great. Are we? There we go. Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you very much. My name is Peter Lamott. I'm Senior Vice President of Chernoff Newman that's based here in the city of Charleston. Time is brief, so I apologize for my speed in presenting this. We have the team who can answer all your specific questions, but what I'm here to discuss is the South Carolina Aquatic and Wellness Complex. It's a mouthful to say, so let me say it this way. What I'm here to discuss is a neighborhood revitalization, character development, tax base increasing, after-school program providing tourism supporting sports and health-focused facility in an area of the city that is asking for just such a neighbor. It's a wellness complex helping to improve the lives of those who walk through the doors, but it's more than just a facility with a few pools. It will provide the region with a training facility for first responders, for the military, and search and rescue. You don't practice in one of those helicopters. You practice in one of these kinds of facilities. It will support the region's medical centers and rehabilitation, physical therapy facilities. It's also supporting an emerging medical field of aquatic therapy. It will provide training to those in the area who may just save your life one day. So let's talk about what you do expect. Competitive swim meets. There will be competitive swim meets, but not just local. This will appeal and attract to a national, international audience and competitions. The facility will be of the size in which it provides local businesses, excuse me, organizations and private parties the space of practically any type of event. And I think arguably the most important, as I mentioned earlier, school-age programs, weekend summer camps will be a staple of this facility and bring water safety and swimming lessons to those in this region that need it. Let's talk about our timeline. Next year and the following year will be dedicated to bringing the design to life, permitting, and studies. Fundraising for the additional capital will be needed to begin development and construction in 2021. That will create nearly 200 jobs in the area by 2022. By 2023, the facility will be operational, bringing 400 jobs to the area in the community. By 2026, when the facility is fully operational, it will create over 500 jobs for the area residents and attract over 50,000 visitors. This is a wholly new type of tourist, above and beyond what we are traditionally accustomed to having here in Charleston. What you see listed is just a few of the reasons why national and international level aquatic associations will jump at the chance to host events at this facility, beyond the reasons that make us already a top global destination. This facility is uniquely located to what is now an international airport, a true international airport, and just adjacent to regional access via 526. But it has the space to accommodate larger events that do not disrupt the county, city, or neighborhood. So at this point, if I may, I'd like to turn it over to Robert Carey, who will talk through the economic impact study that took place.
Okay, my name is Robert Carey. I'm a researcher at the Clemson University Regional Economic Analysis Laboratory, and actually did the impact analysis for this aquatic facility, and so we can look at some of these impacts that have found. We actually ran this using the REMI model, which is basically the Cadillac of economic impact models. And what we ran it on was the first of all, the construction, which is a $50 million, whoa. It's something. Okay, the construction, which is a $50 million investment over 5 years. And then that itself is going to have an economic impact. But then further above this, once the facility is completed in 2023 and gets fully going by 2026, when you have all these events coming in, then you're going to have not only your operational, which is your wages, salaries, and normal operational spending, and your normal ongoing capital expenditures to upgrade and maintain equipment, but probably most importantly for the economic impact, you're going to have these visitors coming in. And Charleston is uniquely situated to be able to capitalize on these because the tourism infrastructure is already in place for the city to be able to enjoy that. So countywide, we have a $60 million annual economic impact projected starting in 2026 after everything's completed and ramped up. And the employment impact is about 536 new jobs within the county. And I'll look at here we look at the city versus the county numbers. The orange lines are the city numbers. Here we have jobs, which is the employment impact, additional jobs created. The economic impact, which is the output or total sales for the region. And that's the dollar value of all the goods and services sold in each year. And then, of course, the net government revenue. I'll talk about each one of these in turn. Again, the orange line is the city of Charleston. And you can see when the facility first starts operating in 2023, you have about a 250 job impact. But once all the events get full tilt and really going, you have about 330 in the city. And then at the county level, which includes the city, by the way, the blue line is the county, which includes the city in all of these. So keep that in mind. By 2026, you have over 500 jobs being created. The economic impact, the dollar impact there is $60 million, like we said, by 2026, largely from the tourism. And then, of course, the government revenue. When we estimate the government revenue, economic activity creates both costs and benefits to the local area. The cost, obviously, are tourists are putting additional demand on infrastructure. You need public safety, that sort of thing. But obviously, the benefits, the increases in revenue come from additional tax revenue, sales taxes, hospitality tax, that sort of thing. And so you see there is a positive net impact on revenue. So you have about a $500,000 impact on revenue in 2023 and continuing through 2026 in each year. Countywide is larger, 1.2 million. Again, that's including the city of Charleston. And of course, statewide, you have the impact there is for the state government is around about $700,000. And so, by the way, we'll point out one thing you may notice there. The The jobs impact and economic impact for the state is slightly smaller than the county. That's because Charleston will be drawing some people in from other parts of the state. So you have some displacement taking place there. So that's why that's a little bit smaller, but it is a net gain to Charleston, definitely, and also to the state overall. By the way, the net government revenue does include about $90,000 impact on hospitality tax within the city and $190,000 on city accommodations taxes. So those are included in the net government revenue as well. So tourism impact is non-local visitors. These are people who are coming in more than a 2-hour drive from outside of Charleston. These are the ones that are going to be coming in and spending their money. Some of them will be within state, but a lot of them are from out of state. And you see here about almost half, or maybe a little over half, are actually out-of-state visitations. And so this is these are the people actually, this is a true import, or export rather. You're actually selling goods and services to people that live outside the area and bringing funding into the area. So this actually generates an economic impact to the area that would not otherwise be there. And as I mentioned earlier, these are tourists that might not otherwise be coming to Charleston. Hospitality-wise, you have 66,000 room nights per year, direct spending about $33.8 million per year. That's including spending on lodging, food, dining out, transportation, and entertainment while they're here. And so all these impacts actually generate a substantial positive impact to the local economy within the city and the county, as well as a positive net fiscal impact as well. Thank you.
Sure.
So briefly, I want to talk about how this lines up with the West Ashley revitalization plan. This will be located in West Ashley. We're currently looking at locations near and adjacent to Citadel Mall. We're in negotiations already to discuss potential sites, but the project falls right in the sweet spot of the West Ashley and Citadel Mall area revitalization plan, but also into the county and city's plan that is practical and smart. So it also has the benefit of supporting the opportunity for more TIF-funded development projects. It brings tourism, it adds, I should say, tourism beyond just the peninsula. As I mentioned, it is in pure alignment. At the core of this project, it is an economic engine for West Ashley. It has the ripple effect of bringing more tax dollars and more revenue to the area. The project falls directly in line with the Plan West Ashley initiative, specifically 34, 86, 116, and 117, addressing community improvement, Citadel Mall area revitalization, financial stimulus, and the construction of a venue for national level events. Talk about funding and budget, where the funding would come from. 50% of it from city and government, 25% from state government, and the remaining 25% from private and corporate pathways. What I believe is more notable, if you look at our projections, we'll be at break even on operation by year 3. So it's important because it shows the facility will not be a tax burden shortly after its launch. But please keep in mind these numbers at the bottom do not consider the programs that I mentioned earlier as well as corporate sponsorship. Finally, just a quick summary. $60 million in economic impact based on that economic impact study that was just presented. That's $60 million per year. New government revenue stream, over 536 new jobs ranging from management level jobs all the way down to new career path, skill-based jobs. It's in alignment with the revitalization of West Ashley. It will bring televised events here to the Low Country. And what I believe is very important, the facility provides a resource to the county, the city, and surrounding communities for education and training that touch every resident regardless of race, gender, or age. So with that, I thank you, and I'd like to turn it over very briefly to Kathleen Wilson for an additional comment.
Thank you, Peter, and it's always such a pleasure to be here. Just a couple of comments because I know you have a long night in store, and I'm going to go home and eat dinner. This is profound innovation. We haven't done anything like this. This is an innovation, and it provides an identity for West Ashley. We bring new types of aquatics and levels of aquatics that we simply cannot even fathom right now because we have nothing that can accommodate. This is a facility that will be open 7 days a week, major hours, 12, 14 hours a day, because that's what these types of facilities need, and that's the demand. As opposed to our current model, which is now bring affluent tourists to Charleston, have them eat in our fine restaurants, stay in our fine hotels, go to the plantations, shop on King Street, this provides a whole new mix, keeping those people, for the most part, out of downtown. We need to refresh our tourism models from time to time, and this is a great means of doing that. This is what growing, healthy communities have. We are a thriving community. We're an international community, and this speaks to the level to which Charleston has risen. This takes an incredible asset off of the burden of the city. If the city assists in construction of this, they've relieved themselves of a major recreational amenity that they have to build in West Ashley at some point. They don't have to own it, they don't have to manage it, they don't have 70+ employees on their payroll, and it reaps tremendous benefits. We can, over time, pay back what the city will assist in funding, as we hope. Public-private partnerships are becoming the new reality of how big things get done. And we look at that right here most recently with the Low Line, with the Parks Conservancy, other type things in Charleston that have taken off in recent years. Nonprofits like ours take the burden off staff because we do the work, we bring the expertise to the table. Those of you who have been around for a little while, you know what the 50-year test is. If we do this well, and we do it now, it absolutely meets the 50-year test. Remember, Charleston Place was supposed to be a drive-up Holiday Inn. And we see what that has done for us. I realize this is intimidating to some people. You might not really understand what I'm talking about if you've never seen one of these facilities or attended or have any interest in the water. We're taking great care to be transparent and to be honest and provide a high level of expertise as we move forward with development. Please ask your questions. We are happy to answer. We have a great team, including an Olympian on our board of directors. We all know what we're doing, and we would love to kick this off and get it going. We will need a little bit of a ramp-up cycle because the cycle for bidding on meats takes a couple of years to get into that cycle. We're asking for substantial funding from the city this year to jumpstart this project, jumpstart the TIF, and bring a huge asset to the community. And this has great merit to South Carolina as a whole. We don't have anything. It has great merit to the Southeast. In fact, this will be a national caliber facility. We've provided you with great economic data, and we ask that you join our efforts and support us in 2019. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Wagner.
I want to thank these guys for coming. I wanted y'all to see everything that I had seen. And that's why they're here, to show you the economic impact and the impact on the revitalization, as well as the wellness and our partnerships with the schools, the colleges, the local schools, and the medical community, which we already have a great thing for. They've shown you everything I've seen except Greensboro, which is the closest facility to us that's doing most of what we're doing, or what they're proposing to do with the wellness/auditorium complex. And that's why I asked that y'all invite them here tonight from the rec committee last time we met. So appreciate your attention, and I think what they've given you is some food for thought. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wilson and your team for the presentation. Councilmember Shade.
Thank you. I just want to echo a couple things that have been included in the presentation and Councilman Wagner's comments. If you read Sunday's newspaper, it was a very moving article about a woman who got motivated because her son had drowned. And one of the great tragedies of all that is that we don't have enough facilities to educate and provide swimming lessons for young people. And so we're terribly inadequately equipped around the Tri-County area with swimming opportunities. And we live in a city that's surrounded by an ocean and by many rivers. And so it's, what I see with this aquatic center is providing this opportunity for educational, besides a recreational component on all this. And it really does have an economic impact for the revitalization of West Ashley, as they're talking about. And I've mentioned this before, but this could be the start of other type of facilities that the city can build for soccer fields, baseball fields, basketball courts, things of that nature, that draw in a different type of visitor that they all have been talking about. And that's not the tourist dollars that we're thinking about, but it still brings in this accommodations and hospitality tax dollars. Because the competition level for all these kinds of sports, including the swimming tournaments, will have a tremendous impact on the region. So I appreciate what Kathleen has been doing, and she's been beating this drum for a long time. And thanks for keep on beating the drum. But I think we need to keep in mind the other activities that we mentioned as well. And I know we talked about that before. So.
Right. I'll just take 15 seconds. A 17-foot dive tank with full diving facilities, that's way more than just simply people learning how to dive. Do you have any idea what that would do for our water rescue teams? We have no deep water anywhere. The deepest we can get is about 8 feet. At MLK Pool, 6 meters by 6 meters, 8 feet deep. With a 17-foot tank and a lot of expanse, imagine what Chief Reynolds could do with his Swiftwater rescue team and the certifications, and we could become a hub of that type of training. And I could go on, but I know there was another question. I think Councilmember Moody had a question.
Councilmember Moody.
I didn't have a question, Ms. Wilson. I just wanted to go on record as supporting this thing. When you look at it, and I've had a chance to look at it, this is obviously not the first time I've seen it, and you look at the plan that's been laid out for the Citadel Mall, or the Epic Center as it's now supposedly known. One of the things that Mr. Davis is planning over there is a whole complex around, I call them club sports, whether it be cheerleading competition, ping pong, volleyball. It just goes on and on, everything that he's planning to do over there. And this is one other item that will be there. As a grandfather of actually now 2 year-round swimmers, my son calls it a $1,000 a weekend addiction. Because these 2 kids travel Greensboro, you talked about Greensboro, Greenville, Atlanta, Tupelo, Mississippi, for crying out loud. One of the largest swimming events in the Southeast is in Tupelo, Mississippi. And all of this stuff, every weekend they're going somewhere and doing this. And I just see the connection between what Mr. Davis is planning at the Citadel Mall and this. And last week, Medical University announced, we had a groundbreaking or a grand opening of, there's going to be about 500 MUSC jobs in the old J.C. Penney building there at Citadel Mall. It's going to be all kinds of clinics, outpatient surgery and stuff like that. The doctor that's in, and also across the street in the South Park building, they're projecting about 1,500 employees from the Medical University. A lot of their back office accountants and stuff like that will be there. The doctor told me that they expect to have 2,000 MUSC employees in that arena fairly soon. I think it's a couple years to get that clinic up. But at any rate, this is an opportunity to add to that. And all of a sudden we start getting this this critical mass that we need to take that TIF or cause that TIF to really launch. And then we can come in and get the highways, the streets, the sidewalks, and all the other stuff that we're going to be required to do. The last point I would make is Councilmember Waring asked several months ago for some data on the hospitality and the accommodations tax. I think since its inception, the number was $300 million that have come in to the city of Charleston through that. My proposal would be that we take, and if we borrowed $30 million at 4% over a 20-year period, the annual payback on that would be about $2,200,000. And that would get us $30 million. And if we got that $30 million, that accommodations tax of $2.2 million would very easily pay for that. So that's where I see the money coming from. I think that we can probably get $5 million or so from the county, maybe $10 million from the state, and because all of those are players in this thing. And then the other $5 million to get us to the $50 million would have to be raised. But I think it's a doable deal, and I think it's a huge impact to our community. So I am very much encouraged by this type of operation, and whenever it becomes time to approve it or move on or whatever we want to do, I'm going to certainly be in support of it. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope we all concentrate on the piece about being an economic development project. For so long, for you all who have been on council for decades, our senior person is Councilmember Lewis. I know he's heard this because I've heard it during the period of time I was here, that to spend tourism dollars West Ashley, you have to have a project to spend it on. And that presentation on the tourism dollars was about $305 million, of which over that almost 18-year period of time, $5 million was spent West Ashley. We also have heard getting tourists off the peninsula. This accomplishes that. And for this development to be in and around the Citadel Mall, we have the infrastructure there. We've got 5-lane Sam Rittenberg Boulevard, most of which is in the TIF. We've got 5-lane Savannah Highway. We've got 526 that sweeps around the back. If that mall property was vacant and that acreage available, it would be one of the most valuable real estate land available in the state of South Carolina. West Ashley, we have over 100,000 people, including those in the county. Former Councilwoman Wilson has done a wonderful job, including, and I should let her speak to this, but the state, county, she did not speak about some of the hospitals that may be interested in this therapy, Medical University, which will be a part of this campus. As you know, Mr. Mayor, you've actually helped to cut the ribbon on the outpatient facility that's going to be placed in the form of J.C. Penney's location. We talk about healthy living communities. Wellness leads that. There is not a facility like this anywhere in the Low Country. Even what's proposed with our friends, and I say this sincerely, with our friends up in North Charleston. They don't have a facility like this. The facility that comes closest to this in the state of South Carolina, if any of you all have been to the Strom Thurmond Wellness Center up in, at the University of South Carolina campus, if you need a GPS, it's on the corner of Gervais and Blossom. It is a wonderful, wonderful facility. Wonderful facility. You all didn't pay attention to the rock climbing wall. When I took Councilmember Moody up there to see it, I had to pull him back from climbing the rock climbing wall. But that will be a part of this facility as well. Creates jobs, and it would be, if we can find interconnectivity, Mr. Lindsay, from St. Francis's campus and the Waring Senior Center, Savage Road potentially could be a connectivity to the Citadel Mall area. So it is a wonderful opportunity for an area that's in need of revitalization. And if you all may have a feeling, I am going to support this one right here. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So thank you again. And I think it's so appropriate that you're seeking other partners for this.
That's the intention for the last 18 years.
I know you have. The College of Charleston closed their pool a year or two ago. They could be a wonderful partner in this. I'm told by the Medical University that at some point they want to relocate their wellness center and pool they could be a wonderful partner as well. So thank you for your work.
There's all sorts of potential that we have not yet begun to tap because we need to have a project, a viable project first.
Thank you very much. Please use your microphone.
Is there an organization that has been officially formed? Do you have
Yes,
a nonprofit?
Friends of the South Carolina Aquatic Center. It's a nonprofit that has been officially formed.
Great. So you're incorporated in the state?
Correct.
Thank you. Councilmember Gregory.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. We all have a calling in life, and that calling is divine. Sounds like you found yours, Councilmember Wilson.
Well, thank you again.
I truly love the water. I tell people I swim so I can lie down and go back to sleep. Thank you all very much. You all know where to reach me if you have any questions. Please feel free to reach out. We are happy to answer questions.
All right. So if I may ask Council's indulgence, I wanted to invite a new member of our community to introduce to you. He has a very busy schedule, so he wasn't here when we had our petitions part of the meeting. Are y'all being excused for a minute? Yeah.
They are.
So,
Maybe not.
speaking of economic impact, there's one organization in our community that has an economic impact of $10.5 billion a year. That's Joint Base Charleston. And Councilmember Moody, your prayer this evening was really beautiful and gave tribute to our veterans, not only those who have served before, but those who are currently serving in our armed forces. And I had the distinct pleasure of attending the transfer of command just a couple of months ago at Joint Base Charleston, and had the pleasure to meet the new commander, Colonel Terrence Adams. And Colonel Adams is with us tonight, and I wanted to introduce him to you, Council, and our larger community, and ask him if he would introduce himself as well and say a few words about himself. Oh, here he is behind me. Colonel Terrence Adams, the new commander of Joint Base Charleston.
How's everybody doing tonight? All right, so 3 things. First thank you is thank you for public service. I know this is a hard business that you all are on this endeavor and this journey to make Charleston a better place, and that takes the government. So thank you for your leadership, each one of you all for participating in this, and I know it's tough business. Also, thank you all for the support you give the men and women who live in this community, right? I couldn't be able to do my job without people coming to work happy, and they get happiness by the things that you all do and the things that you all provide as city government and also city leadership. And then the third thank you, just thank you for honoring the veterans. Thank you for honoring me. I come from a small town, Tuskegee, Alabama. A lot of history and heritage there in Tuskegee, and it's in some ways similar to Charleston. So me being a military member and being present as far as coming to the Veterans Day Parade, for an example, and having your mayor here provide some opening remarks, giving me an opportunity to speak. But more importantly, the mayor stopped on the side of the road and waited for my formation to come through, and then joined us and walked the rest of the way. And I want to just publicly thank him in front of you all. And also, he took time to take pictures. I mean, I had a lot of people, soldiers and sailors, and also some airmen that were there. Each one of them wanted a picture with the mayor. And I felt that love and warmth from the first day that I met the mayor. And it's been a beautiful transition for me to come here to Charleston. I'm only on my second month, and I got, as you know, 2 storms under my belt. And so now people are calling me the hurricane magnet because I've been here for so long. But I just wanted to come in and just say thank you. I also want to talk about partnerships too. We welcome partnerships, the public and private partnerships on the base as well. I think that's one way that we can come together in a lot of different areas, and I would look forward to working with you all on that as well. And as I am a person who will probably be here for about 18 months to 2 years, I see Joint Base Charleston as your base. It is in your community. I am a visitor. I am happy to hold the mantle while I'm there, but it is your community. So if you don't feel welcome or been to the base, I'm giving you an invitation to Joint Base Charleston. Come out, we can set up a tour or whatever you want to do and see, but it is as much your installation as it is mine, and I thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for your incredible service, and Colonel Adams is a very humble guy, maybe come from a small town, but he's a computer scientist and has more degrees than you can put on both my hands. He's a really smart guy, and he is the commander not only of Joint Base Charleston, but also of the 628th Air Base Wing, all those C-17s you see flying in the air. So he has an incredible career serving in our Air Force. And Colonel, we're just so glad to have you in Charleston and part of our community. No, sir, you're not a visitor here. You're at home here, and we welcome you. God bless you. So next is a report from the Sustainability Advisory Committee, and the committee met on November 1st. I serve as the chairman of the committee, and it's just an advisory committee. We had just 2 items on the agenda. One was an update on our sea level rise strategy, which Mark Wilbert led us in, which was basically tell you there's more to come, and we'll have a more full update on this sea level rise strategy, I think in early January. Now, but the big item was the environmentally acceptable packaging and products ordinance that many people have come to talk to you about tonight. But just to give you a little bit of history, this matter came before the committee 2 or 3 months ago, and even though the committee members were supportive, they decided that we wanted to have a little more outreach to the community, and that's just what Katie McCain has done over the last few months, in addition to the outreach that was done by the city a couple of years ago. So if it pleases council, Ms. McCain can give us a brief presentation. It'll only be about 5 minutes about the ordinance and what's included, and then we can take up the matter. Ms. McCain, Katie.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm here to talk to you about the environmentally responsible packaging and products ordinance that the committee reviewed. You can see that we've been talking about this for about 3 years. So the Sustainability Advisory Committee had public meetings back in 2016, and this is actually our 6th public meeting about this. One of the big reasons why we want to support this ordinance is because we're trying to remove those common items that are picked up in sweeps regularly. Just as Charleston Waterkeeper mentioned, plastic bags and polystyrene are those top items. So this ordinance really, it does a few things. It protects our environment and our marine life, of course. It's protecting our tourism economy and all those organizations and businesses who depend on our tourism economy. It's protecting the livability of our city for litter and trash purposes. And it's protecting our human health. What do I mean by that? So microplastics, when they get in the water and they break down, you can see this example. This is an image from the aquarium, how these microplastics get into fish over time, and they've actually been found in humans now. So this is where it's starting to affect our human health. And now I'll give you a brief summary of the ordinance. So the ordinance is actually modeled after local nearby ordinances, so Mount Pleasant and Folly. So very similar items are in there. So basically it's a regulation on single-use plastic bags, polystyrene and plastic foam products, and plastic straws. There's a multitude of exemptions that are in the ordinance, and they're very similar to other local ordinances, such as your newspaper bags and silverware, for example. You can also request an exemption at any time. So if there's something we missed or something special, that's something you can request. Now, it's important to note this ordinance, if it were approved, it would go into, actually has an effective date of 1 year after approval. So there'd be a whole year that was purposely built in so we could help businesses with the transition. And you could actually request an additional year. So there's actually an option for if a business has an extended circumstance that they can show a hardship and request an additional year. So we have at least 1 year for the transition, if not more. So we actually did a survey back in 2016 when we first started talking about this to make sure this was something our residents and our businesses wanted to do. And our results were alarming. We received over 5,000 responses. 222 of those were from businesses, and everybody was vastly supportive of a ban. They were less supportive of a fee on bags, but very supportive of a ban. So we took those results and we had created the ordinance that's in front of you today. Now, when we took this to the Resiliency and Sustainability Committee in September, as the mayor mentioned, this was an opportunity for the committee. Just wanted to do one last really big push to businesses and particularly restaurants. So we actually posted the ordinance on our website. We shared it in every place we possibly could. The news picked it up. We had it went out in email blasts through the Restaurant Association, shared some great feedback with us, and we had a feedback form on the website. So in the last 3 weeks, we've actually received over 815 results from this survey, and you can see 113 of them were from businesses, and they were 98.5% positive. So very, very few negative comments, and actually a lot of the negative comments we were actually able to take their input and revise the ordinance accordingly because there was actually some really great feedback that we received. So just some more data for you. Folly Beach, Surfrider does a lot of cleanups, and this is some data from them on Folly Beach showing how local ordinances really do work, and this is data from Folly Beach showing pre-ordinance pickup versus post-ordinance pickup. So like I said, there's this massive transition period. We have had all kinds of organizations volunteer to donate resources, donate time, do business roundtables. We can help whoever needs help, and really this is a behavioral change. This is helping people really try to shift their behavior. So we have this year transition. We can make changes on the ordinance should something go wrong. People can apply for hardships. They can apply for other exemptions. And ultimately, this is kind of their time to modify it because we know recycling is not really working. Recycling is great, but when it comes to plastic bags, Charleston County doesn't accept them. They actually jam all their equipment and cause slowdowns. They cover our storm drains and promote and increase flooding. They can fall into the storm drains too. So this is really our time to do something about this pollution. The EPA actually estimates that less than 5% of plastic bags are recycled. So I'll just leave you with this slide. These are all the nearby actions that you can see. You can see there's kind of a hole in the middle there, and that's us. That's the city of Charleston, right? So you can see Mount Pleasant is in blue, IOP is in green. Sullivan's is actually, they're not officially approved, but they have passed a second reading on it, and they're trying to go into effect real soon. And of course, Folly Beach is on there. To our north, we also have Surfside Beach, and to our south, the entire Beaufort County. So this is an opportunity for us to kind of to get back in the game and to show that we're very strongly supportive of protecting this coastline.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. McCain? Councilmember Moody.
Was there anything scientific about the survey you did?
Scientific. We had...
is it based on scientific sampling and stuff like that, or was it just put out?
It was not a poll, it was just a survey.
It was just a survey, so it was put out, Live 5 News, neighborhood email blasts, social media, things like that.
That was the answer I was looking
yes.
for. I thought that's what it was. I've seen too many of these. My problem with this ordinance, and I could get on board with it if we would say, okay, we're going to put this in effect in a year if there's some increase in the enforcement of our litter laws. We don't have a plastic problem that this is going to solve. We have a litter problem, and it is horrible. I pulled into Wildflower Cafe this morning, and you would have thought that a dump truck, a garbage truck had a terrible wreck there. I mean, there were Chick-fil-A styrofoam cups, there were bags, there was trash everywhere. And eventually, that's going to be in the, and I would venture to say if we went to our magistrates and our city judges and found out how many cases were made for littering in the last year or two, or last 10 years, you could count them on a couple hands. Not any more than that. I would guarantee you that, I mean, I would venture a guess there. A little bit earlier, I was going to call up Mr. Anthony. He and I did one of these sweeps on the Greenway, I guess it was a couple years ago. And there was a Montessori school that the parents were out there in the retention pond. There's a big retention pond right behind one of our fire station there. And he had, it must have been 30 or 40 kids and their parents out there, and the parents were out in this retention pond pulling out all of this trash. And the kids had their little clipboards, and every time they'd pull something out, they would write it down. Now, when we got through, we started looking at what was on the clipboard. There wasn't any plastic bags. There was trash everywhere. There was bottles, there were cans, there was styrofoam. There was stuff everywhere. And most of my colleagues here know where I live. I live on the marsh. And at least twice a year, and I've got 5 acres of marsh behind my house that is actually deeded to my property. It's under the old King's Grant stuff. So I go out in that marsh at least twice a year, and I'll usually fill up one of our city, not our big city green cans, but the smaller city can. I'll fill up one of those every time I go out there. You know what I find? I find bottles, cans. I find golf balls. I've picked up a dozen or so golf balls out there. I don't know who the hell's driving golf balls out in the marsh. Tennis balls, you would be surprised how many cores of tennis balls, they probably come from our tennis center right down the marsh. People lobbing them off into the thing, or either that or Bill Sharp, who's got a tennis court on the marsh, and he's probably not a very good tennis player. He's probably knocking them out. But anyway, I found one of the little policemen with where that holds the flags that slow down for the kids. I found, I mean, I can't tell you, styrofoam docks. I mean, I go out there and I pull all that junk out of that marsh at least twice. And you go out, you want to come by my house in the morning, you can see bottles out there in the marsh. I have yet to find one plastic bag. Now, I don't know whether or not plastic bags float to the bottom. If they do, then the turtles can't eat them. But I do know that the as I mentioned to the lady from the aquarium, that the microplastics that was on the screen that Ms. King put up there, that all starts. I mean, every time your tire runs around, it leaves it's a plastic-based residue on the streets. They get washed off. Your clothes, every time you wash your clothes, a lot of those fibers, they go into with your soap and all that, they go down the drain, they end up in the rivers. I don't want to vote against this because I think it's important that we do something, but to me, it's almost like, okay, we outlawed bump stocks. We haven't had a single mass killing with bump stocks in this city, but we still have killings. We apologize. We hadn't fixed the affordable housing. We haven't done a lot of things. I don't want to let us off the hook by passing an ordinance and say, okay, now we feel good. And that's what this feels like to me, is feels good. And if somebody would figure out a way to enforce these litter laws and start hauling these people into court. I went to the dry cleaners just the other day. There was a truck there, a pickup truck beside my car, and I got out and looked. The thing was full of trash. And I guarantee you, when that guy got home, all that trash would be in the street. He'll say, man, it's magic how all this stuff just disappears. And so I'm really almost to the point I just want to vote present tonight on this. I don't, I don't want to say no, but I don't want to say, yeah, let's do this and think we've done something, because I don't think we've done anything. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Moody, and Sandy will attest that I share your pet peeve about trash in this city and everywhere I go, and I'm particularly when I see trash and plastic at a storm drain, that really irritates the daylights out of me. And back once again to our trip to the Netherlands, and this is true of many places in Europe. I guess it's just a different culture, but in the city of Amsterdam we were there, and I remarked after we were there for like 3 days, as a city of 1 million people, I found one bottle, you know, on the street. You know, people over there have just, it's a different culture. They don't throw their trash on the street. I wish we could legislate that. We have laws against littering, you know, catching the person and you know, at the moment they throw the piece of trash is a very difficult thing to enforce, you know, and I'd love to enforce our way to a cleaner city. Thanks God for Andrew and all the other volunteer groups and Keep Charleston Beautiful that is engaged in so many cleanup activities. And but I would share with you that this is more than a feel-good measure, that other cities and counties have felt the same way. There are results that are being generated by putting these ordinances into place, and it is in fact banning those products that are most harmful to our environment, and particularly our marine environment. So I would urge us to pass it. Councilmember Shealy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I served on this committee and was one that brought it to council. I will tell you that I've spent a lot of time since that point studying this. In fact, I had told my fellow councilman the other day that he said, "What have you been doing?" I said, "I've been studying these plastics to make sure I know where I am and where I stand." Part of the reason is that it's certainly going to hurt some local business people. I like that we've got a 2-year potential period there for those people, but our local grocers are going to hurt from this. It's going to cost them a lot. And a couple of things that I found when I was on the Resiliency and Sustainability Committee, I was listening to information that was given to me, and in this ordinance it reads single-use plastic products and other non-locally or has to be locally recyclable. That recyclable meaning any material that is accepted by the Charleston County Recycle Center. So in studying all this, I want to make sure our other councilmen know that these plastic bags are very recyclable, because I didn't understand that at the time that I was sitting on that committee, and I think it's a very important point to understand. I went to a couple websites. I think one of them was earth911.com and is doing some of this study, and another one is plasticfilmrecycling.org is another one. Well, on these websites, particularly that last one that I said, plastic film recycling, you can go and put in any zip code that you'd like, and it will tell you what can be recycled and where. So I put in 29403 as downtown Charleston. I could have put 29401 or any other zip code, but I put in 29403. There are 75 drop-off locations for these plastic bags to be recycled. So it was an eye-opener for me, and I just felt like that's an educational point that needs to be brought up. The plastic bags, in a lot of ways, are greener than paper bags as well, in some of my studying. I found that the EPA pointed out that plastic bags require 40% less energy than the production of paper bags, that paper bag manufacturing creates 70% more air pollution and 50% more water pollution. In addition, recycling plastic bags uses 91% less energy than recycling paper bags. So there's a lot of positive that I didn't know while I was sitting on that committee, and I just felt like I needed to bring that out to this council to make sure we're fully educated on what's going on. But overall, according to this, plastic bags in a lot of ways can be greener. We talked about ocean rise. Plastic bags may be better for this ocean rise than paper bags, according to some of the things that I read as I was searching through these websites. I'm not against this ordinance, and I certainly want to, you know, the styrofoam, the plastic straws, I see those dangers. I also saw those websites with the turtles, with the, and in those committee meetings, I held these plastics that were killing sea life and everything. So I understand the importance. I really do. But I felt like we need to be fully educated that these plastic bags are not as damaging overall to the environment as I believed when I was sitting on that committee at that point. I should have done my homework, and I apologize. I should have brought this out before it ever came to council. But I think it's very important that we understand everything on there. So I just, as far as reused plastic bags, a lot of people reuse these plastic bags. When we take plastic bags at my house, all of those plastic bags end up at St. Mark United Methodist Church. There's a couple of reasons why. Our church happens to make plastic mats out of these bags. They use those plastic bags to make plastic mats. Most of those go to homeless or to other groups who may need a dry place to sit or stay. They also go to the daycare center there to bag up dirty diapers, also wet clothing if a child had an accident that doesn't have a diaper, or maybe they got muddy. I think a lot of people reuse these. So when you hear single-use, non-recyclable, that is not the grocery bags that we're talking about. Because these bags can and are reused, and they are recyclable. And like I said, it's very important to me to protect the environment. But I just felt like the full story needed to come out, so I wanted to share that.
Councilmember Lewis and White.
And I'm like Councilmember Moody. I'm kind of torn between voting for it and voting against it.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember here made a great point. It's not all you've been hearing on the TV and the news all day, all night, that the city is going to ban plastic bags. But the plastic bags really ain't the problem. There are a lot of other things that clog it up the environment and the rivers, styrofoam plates, styrofoam cups. But we didn't think about the use of plastic bags. How many people use plastic bags? When you go to the store to buy groceries, you got to have a plastic bag. Years ago, you used to get nothing but brown paper bags. There was so much said about brown paper bags, a lot of stores stopped using brown paper bags. Now, we want to get rid of plastic bags. And you get a person right now to go to the grocery store, if they request a bag, they can get a brown bag, but that brown bag doesn't help that consumer taking his or her groceries home if they're walking or they're catching the bus, because a brown bag, you may carry 1 or 2 plastic bags. Some people got 3 or 4 bags around their arm carrying the groceries. So you're hurting the consumer, you're hurting the businesses, and you're making it look like plastic bags is the problem, but it's just ain't only the bags. There's other styrofoam products. Now you talk about the ordinance. Who's going to enforce the ordinance when it's not being enforced? I read in this livability again. Livability got enough. Our code enforcement people got enough to do. How are they going to go and check and see if stores and stuff are going according to where the ordinance is written? So that's another thing that we need to rethink in this ordinance. We either need to create a department, create a group within the department, whether it be sanitation, police, or whatever, but in the department to look at these stores to see who is and who isn't enforcing this order. But Dan Riccio them got more than they can handle now. I mean, they got a whole lot. Anybody sitting around any one of these seats there can tell you they're overwhelmed with the work they got. So we really need to look at this ordinance, the way it's written, and some things need to be changed in it, and particularly plastic bags and the enforcement piece. Those two concern me.
Thank you. Councilmember White.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple things. One, I have to agree with Councilman Shealy. The bags that we bring in from the grocery store are certainly not single use. I mean, we use them, and actually there's little things that you can buy that you can stuff them in there at stores and keep them out of the way. So somebody's created a whole entire business model around places to store these, quote, single-use bags, but in reality, I don't think that's the case all the time. The second thing is the comment was made about this survey that the individual survey didn't have a lot of interest in a fee associated with the bag, but yet banning it, they had an interest. Well, a local grocer shared with me that his cost will increase $37,000 net to use paper bags versus the plastic bags. That fee is going to get passed on to consumer, period. So they're going to pay for it. I mean, whatever you do, you're going to pay for it. Pay for it in a fee where you pay 10 cents for a bag like we did in LA, or you're going to pay for it with your groceries being more expensive. It's going to get paid for somehow. The other thing I will say about the number of exemptions in here, really, quite frankly, as you go through it, begs the question, how much impact are we actually going to have by doing this? The exemptions, I'll just read off a couple very quickly. Laundry, dry cleaning bags, door hanging bags, new paper bags, bags for multiple uses for garbage, pet waste, bags that are used inside a store for bulk items, bags for nonprofit corporations are exempt, bags that you bring into the store are exempt, bags that are from a pharmaceutical company or dentist. The list goes on and on and on. It starts to beg the question, if we pass an ordinance to ban bags, but the list of exemptions is this long, how much impact are we going to really have? And I do think, as Councilman Moody pointed out, we have a behavioral problem. You know, if my children throw something out onto the street, let me tell you, it's lights out for them. Because I've taught them, this is the place that we all live. You know, I'm a very avid boater. And as an avid boater, and most avid boaters do, and people who go out there in the waterway, if you ever see anything in the water, you stop and pick it up. And you certainly don't allow your boat to have stuff flying out of it. That's just sort of an unwritten rule. So I don't think we have a plastic problem. We have a behavioral problem. It's about litter. And I'm not a libertarian, but I'm going to say something that makes me sound like one. I don't think we can legislate behavior by just simply banning plastic bags. It's not going to change the fact that we have a problem with sea turtles getting sick and coming to the aquarium. We're not going to change that. Because guess what? Sea turtles don't just hang around off the coast of South Carolina, and certainly not in our harbor. They travel all over the place. So again, I know we're trying to sort of chip away at this thing and chip away, well, not we, but the folks who have an interest in this are trying to chip away at it. But I would tell you, we're spending, I think, a lot of energy trying to legislate when I think we need to spend more energy on behavioral modification. And I think that that's really where we're going to have an impact. So again, I want the best for our community. I want a clean community. I want the best for our environment, certainly the sea turtles and the animals and everything, and I want that to be available for my children and their children's children to be able to see and benefit from, but I don't think this is going to do it. And I'm not saying that it didn't go far enough. I'm just saying that if we don't take time focused on the things that have an effect on behavior, I'm not sure we're ever going to make a change that we need to see. So I'll leave it at that.
Councilmember Wagner, then Shade.
Okay. The exceptions were in my mind, as Councilmember White said. There's an awful lot of stuff in this ordinance. I mean, mostly good stuff. Now we're at a position to where, okay, the exceptions go far enough, or do they go too far? Only the smaller grocer, the smaller restaurant, these are the guys it's going to cost the money, and they have no choice but to pass it on. There's no doubt about that. Flip side of the coin is those folks that don't pick up those bags, or Gary, we're not following Gary in the boat. One of those bags gets around that problem, a couple $1,000. I mean, you know, after you get towed in. So, what is acceptable? And the answer is, I don't know for sure. I know what's unacceptable, but I don't know what's acceptable here, because there are so many moving parts, because we're dealing with humans. And humans, some of us are stranger than others. Some of us like to throw stuff out the car. But in the long run, we got to do something. How about that? Now, is this perfect? The answer is not yet. Can we make it better? More than likely, by either changing the exceptions or by changing some of the rules. My thought is we probably, or to paraphrase my philosophy buddy there, from way back about 3 years ago, maybe it needs to go back in the oven for just a little bit longer until we get it cooked just right. And I've used that about 300 times, Bill. Thanks a lot. But I've got two choices here. Try to figure out a way to fix it in the next week or two by giving it a maybe possibly first reading, or to ask for a deferment. And if you guys believe that we can fix it, I'll go with the deferment, you know. Otherwise, I have aligned myself with a couple of my very good friends and neighbors, and I've told them this is going to be a yes vote. I told Katie it would be a yes vote from me. So I would prefer to fix it. Otherwise, I've got to go with what I promised folks I would do. So I just thought I'd put it on the table to you guys too.
Thank you. If I may bring one other point up to this discussion, it has to do with home rule. One reason why I believe timing is of the essence is because the state legislature threatened to, in fact, had a bill that would have denied cities the authority to pass such a ordinance as is before you this evening. And so respectfully, even though it may not be perfect, I thought it was incumbent on us to consider this measure before the next legislative session starts. And I must say, I think Charleston knows well enough to be able to pass an ordinance or not, you know, without the state legislature basically denying home rule on us. So that's one point. And I admit it's not perfect, but one thing I would point out is that it is in concert with the Mount Pleasant ordinance and these other jurisdictions. So it is a start, and we would have some consistency in our region as to what is being enforced. And boy, would I love to be able to have the behavior modification for our whole population, never to throw trash out anymore. But I kind of feel like it's a starting point to in essence, stop the supply of these items from being in the food chain, so to speak, of being thrown out, and then literally in the food chain when they get in the marine environment. Councilmember Shade and then Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We need to pass this ordinance, and we need to do it tonight. In 1996, I traveled with my wife over to Europe in Paris and visiting my mother-in-law at the time, and I was impressed immediately with what we did not take with us or pick up when we went to the market. There were no plastic bags. Since 1996, Europe has been, and someone can correct me on this, on the forefront of this ban. People, when you talk about behavior modification, shoppers walked in and walked out with their own reusable bags to carry their products in and out. When I was involved with the Knights of Columbus Turkey Day run, we started recycling these reusable bags. It cost 50 cents to make, 50 cents for these bags. You worry about economic impacts on the consumer and the businesses. It doesn't cost more than 50 cents to make this bag that you can reuse over and over again. 6 of us went to Los Angeles this past week. We were all handed these bags as party favors. Those bags are things that we can use to go grocery shopping with. It's right there for us. The economic impact on this is going to be nominal. Companies don't want us to pass this because they use this tactic to say it's going to have a huge impact on their businesses. Well, it won't. if we reused bags. My wife commented to me as I walked out, she said, "Oh God, Lord, you're going to pass this plastic bag ordinance. I need to hoard because we need to pick up the dog poop." Well, there's other ways for us to do that, and we can do that more effectively. Plastic bags are non-biodegradable. That means that they stay in the environment, and they contaminate the environment. They're toxic. And that's what we need to be focusing on. It's very simple. They don't biodegrade. You can recycle them, you can use them for other purposes. That's all very true in fact. We pass laws to modify our behavior all the time. We pass laws to say the speed limit is 30 miles an hour. We don't have an open no speed limit law in the city of Charleston. That's part of behavior modification because we want people to drive safely. We have stop signs that say stop at that particular intersection. We have laws about drug use. That's behavior modification. That's what we're doing tonight. We're modifying folks' use of something that's not helpful to the environment. And the alternative to that is a very cheap way of providing other containers that we can use that won't hurt the environment. And we can pass those things out. We got two from Los Angeles. And you can reuse those things over and over again. We have an opportunity, because as you look at that map up there, we're the missing tooth. I have a house in Isle of Palms, and Isle of Palms is the first municipality in the Low Country to pass this. Within a year, it was just incredible to notice the difference out of the impact it had on the beaches. It was incredible to notice that. But they were ineffective to the point because in Mount Pleasant, there was no ban. And so you can go grocery shopping on the Harris Teeter on Isle of Palms and get a paper bag or use your own reusable bag. But you went to Mount Pleasant, at the Harris Teeter in Mount Pleasant, just across the connector, you can use plastic bags. It defeated the whole purpose. And that's why Mount Pleasant filled in their gap. This is the opportunity for Charleston to speak up and fill in the gap that we need to fill in right now. This is our chance to do that, and we need to go ahead and fill that out. I filled in for the mayor this morning to address the Southeast Recycling Development Corporation, and I was there with County Council Member Brantley Moody to welcome the participants to that. One of the things they talked about was that an issue with recycling is contamination, and you can't recycle things that are contaminated. Plastic bags have a huge impact on that contamination. So it's fun to talk about recycling. I recycle, I know a lot of us recycle, and we need to do that, but plastic bags have a way of contaminating those things that we're trying to recycle, and it defeats the purpose of recycling. Let's get these things off the market. That's what we really need to do. Just get these things off the market and move forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson, Williams. Order. Thank you. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. I will associate myself with Councilmember Shade's very brilliant and compelling words just then. I have similar. I never had any doubt about agreeing with this ordinance. A couple of years ago, when I heard that it was a citizens' effort that the mayor responded to and put it before the Sustainability Committee at that time, I was disappointed that it had sort of fallen short. But I think the idea that we've now seen the jurisdictions that are the closest to us on the coast and sort of our brothers and sisters in low country challenges that we're all facing, no matter what environmental issue we're going to be talking about over the next months and many years. I think Charleston does need to put our money where our mouths are in asking for regional help for all of the things that we see on our horizon having to do with environmental. And we need to join in with the neighbors that we've pledged ourselves to. So that's a big reason for me. Personally, I don't understand the logic that would not want to respond positively to a movement like this that's, coming forward in our country especially among the younger generations who we're hopefully training up to take over for some of us who've been, trying to do our best as leaders in our own communities the last couple of decades. So I was having this conversation with Councilmember Seekins this afternoon, asking him how he was going to vote on this, and he said even though he and his family have always been recycling fanatics, and they never would consider, adopting the habits of littering or clogging up the environment in ways that, we bemoan. But he was hearing a lot of encouragement from the businesses on King Street that this would not be in their best interest. And so I said, well, surely you're going to vote your own head and your heart and your own judgment about this. And he said, no. Sometimes, I pay attention to what my constituents tell me, and that's usually the way I make my decisions. So I started thinking after that, well, I've been out there in front of, out of my own mind and my own convictions about why this is such a good thing for the city to be doing. But I really hadn't been testing the waters among a lot of the constituents that I serve. So I'm very glad that those constituents came to our chamber this evening. I think it's very clear that our constituents in Charleston, across the generations and across the spectrum of geography, want us to pass this, and for that reason, I have no qualms about voting yes to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Waring, Seekins, and Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think there's one huge omission in this process. I listened as all the people came and spoke, and maybe even in your committee process, Councilman Shealy, no one has asked CPW's opinion, at least CPW's Charleston, I say CPW, Charleston Water System.
Water Service.
Charleston, I'm going, well, actually it's CPW doing business as Charleston Water System. That's the official name. So, but if you were to see the machines that it takes to process our wastewater, what's that big, I think it's called a woolly mastodon, the big elephant that is now extinct. That's what those machines look like. And now it's not all plastic bags, but plastic bag is certainly a huge part of it. Most recently, baby wipes, believe it or not, they did a marketing piece that said baby wipes clogs pipes. And it actually got recognition from here to California and all up and down the East Coast. And I would submit that behavior is already changing. But I hear you loud and clear, Councilmember White and Moody. We all want to do the right thing. But I can remember when we went to the grocery store and all you got was a paper bag, like Councilman Lewis said. Then all you got was a plastic bag. Now you go to a plethora of grocery stores and you get the choice, paper or plastic. And we now have reusable bags. I've got one in every car that I have, okay? That's behavioral change. It cost us, as a city, a tremendous amount of money to fix the machines and unclog the machines where these plastic pipes are coming over our Plum Island plant. They have an actual shaft that the circumference is about as large as this area. Most recently, when I mean most recently, maybe 30 days ago. 2 weeks ago. Right. And if you see it, I'm telling you, man, these guys got the right stuff. They actually get in a scuba diver gear, dive down into, I'm not making this up, dive down into the wastewater sewage to unclog some of these plastics to enable our plant to function efficiently. And if we had that presentation up here tonight and you actually saw what it takes to unclog and the actual clog itself combined with paper, plastics, and the like, baby wipes and the like, you say, my God, we need to do something about it. So can we do it better? We probably most certainly can. I'm going to vote for it to give first reading But I hear my colleagues loud and clear. I don't know if there's something we can do between first reading and second reading and even the third reading. But when it comes to keeping our shores clean and waterways clean, and I've seen plastic bags. I fish. I like the spot tails fish. So I fish in the creeks and the like. So I see them out there. I see the styrofoam. I was in Jacksonville this weekend, and every restaurant that I went to had paper straws. And what a throwback. Remember we all used to get the milkshakes with paper straws, and if you didn't finish the milkshake quick enough, the straw would collapse on you? But that's a smart, I think that's community moving in the right direction. So I'm gonna support this. Can we make it better and best practices? Maybe from listening to our colleagues we can. But I hope we would move forward on this one. But during the second reading, I certainly would solicit CPW to have a PowerPoint presentation so you all can actually see and have a number presentation on what it costs every person in this region that get water or sewage from CPW. And that goes beyond the city of Charleston, obviously. What it costs us that reflects in our wastewater fees and our clean water fees to treat this plastic and get it out of the way. So I'm going to support this.
Councilmember Seeking.
Councilmember Mitchell. Then.
Mitchell. Yeah.
No, I understand what everyone was saying here tonight. All my colleagues and everyone was standing here. And but I want to say this is not Mount Pleasant. This is not Folly Beach, for one. You know, I hear these terminology and I tell people every day, all day long, even my constituents when they come to me, you know, I'm a product of the city of Charleston. 70 years right here in the city of Charleston. It's not that I come here, I was born and raised here. Things have changed a lot, yes, but I look at, when I'm voting on something, I vote on what's going to happen for everyone in the city of Charleston. Everyone. Most of everyone coming here tonight, I haven't seen no one in here that looks like me that have to come in this chamber tonight to say yes or no. Have they been touched? Have they been reached out to? They're the one that's using a lot of these bags. And I've seen them in the store every day when I drive by the stores, because the stores are mostly is in my district, Councilman Lewis district, and the Councilman Seeking district, so to speak. And I know they use these plastic bags. And what's going to be the alternative for these people when they go to those stores, these senior citizens that we have? And they talk about the one bag they're going to give you. That one bag is not going to be sufficient for the people when they go out and buy their groceries. It's not going to be sufficient. I don't know what people are talking about or saying that to be sufficient. It's not going to be sufficient with one bag. It's not going to happen. You go to these stores at night, I go to these stores in the morning and see people shopping and see what they're buying and see how many bags they're coming out those stores with. So my mixed emotion with this is sometimes the have and the have-nots. Sometimes you got the people with the have could care not with the have-nots. They don't get, you know, and that's what I'm hearing and seeing, and I have a problem with it. And I might support this, but if it comes back with the same changes, then I would not support it. Because my constituents, if you look at what's happening from Calhoun Street to Rosemont, that I'm dealing with, my constituents, they tell me they don't want to do it. They tell me to leave it alone. But they know that I make my own decision. That's one thing but me. I make my own decision. And I'm going to make a decision that I feel that's going to be best interest for everyone. And that's the way I do it. So that's my mixed emotion on this, on the plastic bag. When I was hearing about it, I have, you know, Councilman Lewis, I think we went and had a presentation done on it. They explained to us, and we would tell them what's going to be the alternative for people coming in shopping, if they're going to have the bags, the brown bags there, or if we're going to tell the stores they have to have enough brown bags to give them when they leave the store. And they say they're going to check with the stores, and the stores say they might do it, or they might. It's the might. I don't want to hear might. I want to hear if they're going to do it, so these people have an alternative to have something done. So this is my problem with this ordinance. Didn't say it's a bad ordinance. I understand what it's doing to the environment. I understand that fully. Because I was doing fish and crabbing, and I was back in the 50s here. So I was doing this all the time. So I know the problem that we're running into, and I've seen what the plastic bags or other things can do to the environment. I understand that fully. But even with the environment, I'm still have to look at individuals who are human beings, who need these things to operate, to keep going. So you have me with the up and down on this issue here. So I don't know where I'm going to go with it, even if I support it tonight, just to go forward to see what kind of changes could be made in second and third reading. But if there's not changes that I feel it's going to be beneficial to everyone in the city of Charleston, not Mount Pleasant, not Farley Beach, not all the palms, I'm not looking at them. I'm looking at the city of Charleston. This is where I live. Yes, you see, so that's going to be my test when it comes, if it comes back, and see what kind of changes is going to be done for everyone in the city of Charleston. Because I represent not only a district, but everyone who lives in the city of Charleston.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember C.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for Ms. Sardina, then I have a couple comments. So while you're coming up, have you had a chance to look at what was filed at the state legislature in terms of the preemption and the banning on the ban of plastic bags to see, one, what it actually does, and two, if it's retroactive?
I have not looked at the legislation that was filed the last time around. And I don't know if they're looking at modifying it this time. So the answer is no.
Okay, so we don't know.
We don't know to what extent the preemption will apply. I mean, I've read through various articles that it will be, it will completely preempt us. But I don't know what the language is as far as the effective date of that.
Yeah, I just wonder if it preempts us from passing the law, or if it really comes back and captures all the laws and would then say we've now trumped you and you're just out of luck. I mean, I think that's something we need to go into this eyes wide open. Eventually, the state's going to take this up, and if you count the votes around there, they're going to pass it. So everyone who came here tonight probably need to go up to Columbia and talk about it. So, all right. I just have a couple comments about all this. Unlike Councilmember White, I think maybe I am kind of libertarian. We've got a lot of laws on our books, a lot, and I'd love to see us pass a law that for every law we pass, we have to repeal a couple, because we got a lot on the books. And some are good laws, yeah, and some are good and some aren't. Just so you all know, it's illegal in the city of Charleston to spit. So for those 40,000 bridge runners who come every year, I mean, we've got laws like that on the books. So thinking about this one, however, and looking at it, it is a tight law with a lot of exceptions. Obviously, a lot of thought went into it. I don't know who drafted it, but it's come from a lot of other places. It's a sophisticated piece of legislation. It's got a lot in it, for sure. They've thought about a lot of things. This body has thought about a lot more. I mean, because Councilmember Mitchell says this is our community, and a lot of this is cultural. I mean, it is. I mean, if you walk around the city of Charleston, you don't just see plastic bags on the street, and you don't just see them in our waterways. You see people using them, and they do. Our citizens use them. I kind of equate this ordinance to the smoking ordinance, and before you all groan, let me just tell you why. When that ordinance came before this body, it was so hotly contested. I mean, it was the end of the earth as you knew it. We were going to ruin the tourism business. Restaurants and bars were shutting down. AC's was leaving. AC's was shutting down. Well, have anybody been to AC's lately? At 1 o'clock in the morning, the line is around the corner. Now, a lot of those people in line are smoking, but I'll tell you where they're not smoking, inside of AC's. But we were going to change the world as everybody knew it, and we're going to ruin everything. So that law went on the books, and I would argue today that in terms of enforcement, we don't need to call Mr. Riccio. We don't need to call the chief. We don't need to call anybody. Because if someone lit up a cigarette in a restaurant or a bar today in the city of Charleston, you know who would enforce it? We would. Absolutely. I would in a second. And, sometimes if we see people speeding, we don't point it out to them, or jaywalking, we don't point it out to them. Smoking in a bar, we point it out to them. I believe that the way we're going in this world when it comes to plastics and man-made materials that are in the environment forever and in our bodies forever and in our food supply forever, natural behavior will get there. And Back to the Future, if we come back 10 years from now, people are going to be like, that plastic bag ban debate was really silly because our practices are heading towards not using them. I will tell you, I have no earthly idea what they hand out at grocery stores. I don't know. I don't know if plastic bags are bad or worse than paper bags. I bring my own every time. I hate the grocery store, by the way. I don't get that often, but we bring our own bags. Bring our own bags. I think that's where we're headed.
So I think eventually we're going to get there. Now, the question is, what do we do with all this? I mean, do we pass it? There's lots of things in here that trouble me. I will tell you, we have too many laws. However, I do think the one thing that we've seen here tonight, and what Councilmember Jackson and I talked about today, is we are single-member districts who represent people, and we're your voice. And one of the places you get to speak to us is in these city council chambers, or in the communications that you have with us via email or text and all of those things. And tonight in these chambers, if there's a huge movement against this ordinance, it didn't show up. If there's a huge movement for this ordinance, it's right here. Everybody is here. You want this. Now, be careful what you ask for. Because you might just get it, and in the form that it's in, it's got some things that need to be adjusted. I know that every one of us around this table, me included, has had lots of visits from people who are in favor of this ordinance, and I was a very early resistor for the reason that I just thought it was too much government. I'm tonight going to be a first reading voter because I think we need to think about this and send a message out that the City of Charleston is a leader in all of this. I was influenced, Mayor, by our trip to Europe, for sure. I mean, we saw a city where there was no trash. Now, there's other places I will tell you that I have been in my life, Havana being one of them, where there's no trash either. And the reason there is because they don't have any resources. They don't have anything. So you got to be careful about taking things away from people. And that's a cultural issue, and I worry about that for sure. But y'all, we derive our sort of inspiration from a couple things, and I will tell you the two things that are going to inspire me to vote tonight that I've drawn on. One is I have a very good friend in the world who's an educator, and he and I run all over the place, literally all over the world together. We were in Newport this summer, and we ran out to the end of the cliff walk. If you've ever been there, it's this beautiful place out in this harbor, just overlooking. We got to the end of the cliff walk. It was hot. It's a long way. And we looked down, we take pictures, we looked down in the water, and there was plastic bags everywhere. I mean, at this point, everywhere. The tide had brought them in. There just were tons of plastic bags. There was styrofoam too, but lots of plastic bags. So that really actually stuck with me. And I knew this was going to come up sooner rather than later. The other is, my favorite thing to do on a Saturday, especially after running, is to go to Five Loaves and have a Coke with lots of ice and a straw. I love a plastic straw in my Coke. Everybody does, I think. Well, the server there, who I've become friendly with, has consistently and continually reminded me I could bring my own straw, right? So now in my glove compartment, I have cardboard straws, which I bring into Five Loaves every Saturday, and I've got to bring two, by the way, because they collapse a little bit. So the behavioral part, to me, we're heading in that direction. I'm going to vote for this for sure. I do think we should keep thinking about it. I think Katie and Mark, we need to talk about some of these exemptions. I worry about them. Every law is only as good as its law, not its exemptions. I do want to recommend to those who came here and spoke loudly in favor of this tonight that you keep an eye on the ball, and it's the legislature, it's not us. You're going to need help at the state level, I think. I think here, you all have enough influence over us around here, not just in our legislative capacity, but in our behavioral capacity, that things will change. So, you know, in the end, people are here, they want this, we'll vote for it, but think about it. Thank you.
But Councilmember Gregory, then Shealy, then
Okay, sorry. I just want to make a point, Mr.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, this has been quite an interesting discussion this evening. And I don't think that we're emphasizing it how I would emphasize it. I agree with Councilman White that there will be a cost for this, financial cost. But I also think there's another cost that we have not really been discussing tonight. The best wealth is health. I don't know who said it, but it makes sense to me. If any of your children, okay, if you just had an inkling that there's something that could cause harm to you or your family, you would get rid of it fairly quickly, without hesitation. And I do think that's how we have to look at this ordinance. It's not perfect. It really isn't. It's not perfect. There are some changes that we can make. But however, I think that it's important for the city of Charleston to take a stand at this point. If we don't, well, folks from Mount Pleasant maybe we'll then be providing the plastic for all those places that have banned it. We'll be supplying it to their riverways. So for me, I think that we really need to think of this as a health issue. And I think that the additional cost for bags will not compare with the cost that it will do to our future generations if we don't take a stand on this issue. I agree, enforcement is needed. I agree that you can't legislate behavior. I agree with all those things. But I also agree that it's very, very important for us as a council to look down the road and understand that our waterways are being polluted. We're creating a very unhealthy environment for our future generations. And I think it's very important, regardless of how limited it will be, if it just helps to save one child, just one child, then I think that we need to be a little more forward-thinking and pass this ordinance tonight. If there are changes that are necessary, we can always amend it. That's not a problem. Exactly. But I do think that it's very, very important that this body sends a message that we understand the importance of the health of our citizens. And yes, it may cost us a little more money financially, but in the long run, I do think that the best wealth is health, and we should protect that for the residents of this city and beyond at all cost. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Shealy, then Jackson, then back to Mitchell.
We talked about change in behavior, and I had mentioned this actually in the sustainability meeting, but the state of Oregon has changed behavior with their people. You remember you used to get 10 cents back on a Coca-Cola bottle. In Oregon, you can actually turn in a recyclable item and get a deposit back. So they have proven that you can change it through other ways than changing laws, and I certainly think that that's something that something that we should look at. As we're looking at this, I mean, I was hoping that we might have a discussion on what is local recycling, but I'm going to vote for this first reading. It's important to me. I care about the environment. I care about our oceans and all of that, and I'm going to vote for this first reading. But I hope that we have some discussion on this ordinance before it comes back.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify with Mr. Mitchell, because maybe I misunderstood you, sir, but you were concerned about customers that now take away multiple plastic bags from the establishment where they're shopping, and that your concern was that they would only be able to have one bag of some nature if we had banned the plastic bags. And I just wanted to point out to you that there is a sentence under the regulations of the ordinance in front of us that says, all business establishments shall provide or make available to a customer reusable carry-out bags or recyclable paper bags. So it would match the quantity of purchases that they would make. Whatever they would buy, they would have bags provided to them to take out.
Yeah, I know that's one of the things that we had placed in that ordinance when I spoke with them.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, this is the problem that's running in the community or the district that I represent. You know, so I have to look out for them also as I'm looking out for the total city of Charleston. And they talk about kids. I have grands. I have kids, children. I'm looking out for their health and welfare also. But even at that, you know, we still have to look out for people.
Right.
Per se. Per se. And Mr. Mayor, what I'm going to do, I'm going to, you know, like I said, under this, I'm going to make the motion that we give this first reading, and then with the first reading, make sure that we do some dialogue and try to straighten out some of these things that's in the ordinance that we need to straighten out. Because that's a motion. There's a motion on the floor. We have a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Moody, then White.
I just wanted to do, as far as any consideration, I still think we need to maybe make as part of this some kind of a litter piece that we instruct our judges, that we start bringing more cases, that we start working on this litter. If we're going to, see, I've got a problem if this doesn't do anything. It just doesn't fix anything. And I want to fix something. I want to fix the litter problem.
So what I want to do,
if this is a piece of it, then that's fine.
You want to make amendments?
The litter problem is a bigger problem to me than this, and we're just breezing right over that.
Could I respectfully ask that we keep the, I agree that we need to address litter in the city, but can we just keep this separate and ask our Keep Charleston Beautiful representatives to come to us next meeting and make a report as to their activities and any recommendations that they would have along with enforcement? I'm more than happy to do that. That's acceptable.
I didn't make a motion.
Okay.
No, I was
just responding to the issue.
Yes, sir.
They were saying we wanted to look at all these things. I wanted litter, and then we need to look at it.
We're going to look at litter. We will look at litter, I assure you. Yes, sir. Councilmember White.
You know, as this presses forward, and I don't know if the motion was to send this back to clean up some of this language to sort of tighten this ordinance up.
Yeah.
If that was the motion, and I think that's the right thing to do. I would ask that the other components, and I meant to mention this in my first comments, that do concern me is that the request for exemptions in this ordinance are approved by an advisory committee.
I forgot to mention that.
And I will just say that that's probably not appropriate.
Right.
I know that there are many council members who sit on the committee, but I think when it comes to making exceptions to laws that we pass, that needs to be done in some body that's made up of elected officials. So I would ask that that also be looked at if, you know, if this passes for first reading before it comes back, that that's something that gets.
So you want to put amendment to that?
If you don't mind, I'd like to make an amendment.
No problem.
Speak to that.
Okay, Councilmember.
Sorry, I had made a note about that and I forgot. I agree with that. That is in here, that the advisory committee handles the appeals and it comes on to this body for an appeal on the appeal as to whether or not you get an exemption. And I don't think that's procedurally the way this should go.
Okay.
I mean, we need to have a better procedure if you're disgruntled about the way this ordinance is enforced than to go back to an advisory committee that only meets quarterly. I just don't think that's the way to go.
All
So
right.
that's something that definitely needs to be looked at.
Okay, we'll consider that before we come back. Councilmember Lewis.
Because if you're going to pass an ordinance to become a law, then it needs to go to the municipal judge.
That's right.
It doesn't need to go to full committee. But like the council member said, we got so much ordinances on the books that we don't enforce, jaywalking. It's illegal to ride a bicycle on the sidewalk in the city of Charleston. We discussed that for hours years ago. And still yet these old ladies have to jump off the sidewalk because there's so much of bicycles. So all we do is pass ordinance and pass ordinance, but nobody enforces it. And if you expect livability to enforce it, they can't. They ain't nowhere. They got too much to do now. So whatever the wish of this council is, I accept it, but I won't be voting on this ordinance.
All right.
Thank you.
Councilmember Waring.
One thing, when we come back with second reading, I would hope we'd have allow CPW to do a presentation on what this does to our equipment.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Katie, we've been listening to all these remarks over here. Okay. All right, can we call the question? We have a motion on the floor to give first reading and review all the changes you've mentioned and bring it back to you for second reading, and we can discuss those changes next time. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Present. Nay and
Present.
Okay.
Nay and present. All right. Thank you all for being with us. You know, we started this meeting out and we moved right through half of the page like in no time. I've never seen us move so quickly. So now we're almost to the bottom of the first page. Would y'all like to take a 5-minute break and come back? Stand adjourned for 5 minutes. we'll get going again. See if we can get off of page 1.
That's the problem. That is the
We got off to such a good start. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We got a quorum.
And we out. Y'all know we was stuck in the elevator? Hey.
All right, I'm gonna, well, I can't, I need Councilmember Mitchell. Oh, he's here. Okay. I'd like to call us back to order. We'll move forward with our council committee reports. First is the Committee on Community Development, chaired by Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah, Councilmember, I want to ask Ms. Johnson if she's here. She's going to make the report for me. Then we'll make the motion afterwards.
Okay.
So if you have any questions, you know, we can just kind of do all this at one time.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
You're welcome, Councilmember Mitchell. So the Committee on Community Development met on Thursday, October 25th at 4:30 p.m. The item under old business was an update to the use of bond funds in development projects. Each of you should have received a memorandum via email with regard to that basically outlined for you those changes relative to my initial report to council and what we learned after further consultation with Charlton Desessor and his team of bond counselors out of Columbia, South Carolina. And I will hit on those just very briefly for you right now. Bond funds can be awarded to both for-profit and nonprofit development entities, whereas previously we thought it was nonprofit only. When bond funds are contributed to deals where either 4% or 9% low-income housing tax credits are invested, bonds become taxable, which means the city is then required to pay the principal and interest on those bond funds, and that's significant in that initially we thought we would be able to secure some funds from the proceeds of rents. We cannot require that with the bond funds as previously indicated. And when it comes to properties that the city owns, and I think this is especially important for the City Committee of City Council, simply because they have been asking pretty consistently over the last several meetings about us literally maintaining some level of ownership of city properties in particular. Basically what the indication is that eventually that property will come back to the city of Charleston, and I think the term used there was a useful life being 31.2 years. And so what we don't want naturally is to have that property transfer back to us with any debt. And so naturally in that RFP that we put out and that has been released, we will look closely at those proposals that looks specifically at having lesser public subsidy included in those deals. Those were the key items in the memorandum that we sent you all. The other items that were looked at on, or that were addressed or presented during the City Committee of City Council meeting, there was a presentation by the 573 Meeting Street Group, which is being led by Stacy Deneau, who is the CEO of 180 Place. They are a group that is interested in bond funds. That was information only. Their group is looking at building 86 affordable housing units for low and very low income residents, some of which are transitioning, of course, from homelessness. There was also a discussion regarding the development of our low-line affordable housing site behind 670 and 670 King Street. And basically there, the presentation did several things. We advised the committee of the development of the site, and we presented during that time a massing study related to 45 units being developed there with parking underneath. There was also the requirement relative to infrastructure improvements that were necessary to make that project most viable. Those dollars were estimated at $1,020,000. We did not not have final numbers and still don't. We knew that when we would have to bring that back to CD committee and full council once we receive those. But the idea is, or the committee recommended us going forward with an RFP, which we are attempting to finalize. The challenge for the $1,020,000 is that during the meeting, staff recommended that those funds be derived from TIF funds. This particular area is outside of the TIF district, maybe by only a block, but nevertheless it is still out. So when we do bring that back to City Council, what we will have to ask for is approval from you all to allow us to put that in the TIF district, showing the impact that that particular site would have to the TIF district. In addition to that, our finance team informed us this morning that TIF funds are at the max level right now, meaning we can't assign any more projects to the TIF district, but I know that the planning staff is also looking at the funding that hopefully will be derived in that TIF district over the next 2 years that will hopefully help to fund the infrastructure request that we have here, because it'll take approximately that amount of time, if you will, to get this development moving, whether we apply or whether there are 4% or 9% low-income housing tax credits applied for. So that is in particular one that required approval. The Overture Workforce Housing Cut Agreement was deferred and will come back to the committee in their next meeting. And then finally, the Upper Peninsula Workforce Housing Ordinance is with you tonight. The committee recommended that you all, in your decision-making, grant first reading of that. It would then go back to, or go to Planning Commission, and before second and third reading of that, which you all would do any changes or any further recommendations relative to that ordinance would be heard then. And I don't see Jacob, I know he's here somewhere, but that was the summation, if you will, of the agenda items on the CD Committee of City Council. Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson.
Councilmember Mitchell, that was an incredible report. Thank you.
You must be exhausted.
So
we make the motion.
I would ask for a motion to consider the ordinance to amend the provisions of the Upper Peninsula District.
Are we going to
have a motion and a second, and I will reiterate. I think a brief comment Ms. Johnson made was that this was discussed at the meeting that we would also have similar to our plastics ban, a review between first and second reading on this, but we wanted to go ahead and get it pending so that we have a number of properties that are continue to come in newly to the Upper Peninsula District, and we wanted to make sure that some affordable housing requirement was in place and it would be if you give this first reading tonight.
Right.
Councilmember Jackson, then back to Mitchell.
Oh, no,
Seekings. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I was at the community development meeting, so participated in that discussion, and I'm very pleased to be able to vote in favor of giving this wording first reading. I have my own recommendation that before we would come back for second reading, that this will go to the Planning Commission, and whether it's actually on the agenda of the Planning Commission before we have our work session with the Planning Commission, but I think this should be an important topic that we discuss together. So I would not like to see it come back for a second reading here until we've had that more overreaching, far-reaching, I shouldn't say overreaching, far-reaching discussion with the Planning Commission. I also recall from our meeting, Councilmember Mitchell, that we were toward the end of our discussion in supporting this as a first reading document, that we were saying maybe we should also consider amending the terms to deal with additional height that we're expecting in a lot of the properties that would be developed on the Upper Peninsula, because we didn't want to just give away 10% of workforce housing as the only award that we would get through that kind of, more dense zoning. So that was my recollection of our discussion at the meeting last week or whenever it was. And I would fully support exploring the opportunities to increase the density of the workforce housing as the density of the properties to be considered would change. So, thank you.
Councilmember Seeker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it's no secret my issue with this ordinance and the manner in which it's gotten before us is the manner in which it was originally born, and that is this was an opt-in voluntary join a new zoning classification that we put in the Upper Peninsula to drive development and density. And we went to people and said, here's what you're getting. We put it down on their desk and said, read this. You can either opt in or you can keep the zoning that you've got. And people opted in, and now we're changing the game in not an insignificant way. This is not anti-affordable housing, but this is changing the game for people who are going to develop up there in a fairly significant way. And I don't believe, Mr. Lindsay, tell me if I'm wrong, that we are going to give people, if we do pass this ordinance as it is now drafted, with the changes, with the requirement rather than the opt-in portion or the voluntary portion of affordable housing, we're not going to give people a chance to opt back to their last previous zoning, right? So they're stuck with this, even though they opted into something that's changing significantly.
If we were to amend the existing ordinance, it would automatically change the entitlements of all the properties that are zoned UP today.
But we're not then, as a result of this change, going to the property owner and saying, okay, well, we changed the game midstream on you, because we haven't had that much development under this new ordinance yet. I know it's coming, there's applications in, but there's not been a lot that's risen out of the ground yet. It's coming. I get it. I mean, that area is about to be hot, but not a whole lot. But we have not given people who opted in and not taken advantage of that ordinance a chance to go back to their old zoning, have we?
No.
Right, so they opted in, but they don't get to opt out, and we changed it. I have a problem with that. I'm going to vote to give this first reading, but if we have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission, I want to talk to them about this and a little bit about sort of how the history and the genesis of this particular zoning, and that it was drafted by our planning department, and then we gave people the option to join in. It just didn't become part of the law, and now we've changed or about to change it on them in a way that will significantly impact them economically. So,
well, I would say that if some property owner came back to us and wanted to apply for rezoning to go back to where they were, I'd support that.
Okay, well, okay, and that's fine. And I just want to make sure I'm not lost on the record and sort of my concern, because this may come up again. So thank you for letting me be heard.
But then again, when it came across my desk that got permits going out to a firm building 300 plus units of housing in the UP, and they got the full height entitlement and the full density entitlement, and there was not one unit of affordable housing, with the focus that this body and city has on that issue, it's worth saying, maybe we left something out whenever UP was put in place that should have been there.
I get that. I totally get that. And I mean, the focus has shifted on that, but again, it is a change in zoning that does create an additional burden that runs with the land.
Right.
Which is, at the very core of sort of property rights, and I just want to make sure that we keep that on the table and recognize that as we go forward through the zoning process. Thank you.
I hear you. Councilmember Mitchell?
I'm good. No, I was just going to.
Would anyone else like to be heard? Councilmember Moody?
What was just said disturbed me a little bit, because, I mean, I agree with you, and we're allowing people to opt out, and you said you would support it. But I'm sitting here thinking, and we got later on this 75% rule, the Planning Commission rules or turn something down like that, and then we got to have this supermajority. Is that, I mean, you might not be able to, am I just reading something into this that shouldn't be there? If somebody came back and wanted a zoning change, it'd have to go to the Planning Commission.
Right.
The Planning Commission denies it. You said you were supporting it. The Planning Commission denies that. That means right now, under our current law, we have to have 10 votes to override that change, for them to opt back out. I mean, it seems like there's something wrong here that needs to be considered. Am I the only one that's nuts? I mean, A lot of us are nuts.
I'm not counting myself in
that. I was just thinking, it might not be, you said I would support that, and that's fine.
If an individual property owner, as a result of this amended ordinance, would want to rezone back to whatever zoning they had prior to opting into Upper Peninsula, I'm just saying that I personally would
my point is, we change this ordinance to allow them automatically to opt out back.
No, sir.
Okay.
I didn't say that.
Thinking. So now they've got to go to the planning commission to get a zoning change to opt out. And if the planning commission for some reason says no, they deny that, then we got to have a supermajority to allow them to opt out.
Well, what I said was rezone, not opt out. That's what I would support.
I think we're saying the same thing.
Yes, we would have to have.
Yeah. I mean, we let them opt in, and then we said, well, you can opt out, but then you got to have a supermajority to opt out.
Well, that's anything that goes to the planning commission that we disagree with them on. And yeah, I get that.
I just want us to be sure what we're doing here, that, I mean, what Councilmember Seeking said is we've allowed them to go in, and now we're changing this thing substantially, so if we're going to let them get out, we got a group of people over here that are not elected that say no, we might not be able to let them out unless we can get 10 votes.
All right. I think we're taking up that matter again later tonight.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the ordinance, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. And we will again review this ordinance before it comes back to you as well. Now, Committee on Recreation, Councilmember Gregory.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, the Recreation Committee met on Monday at 3:30, and we had a couple of items for discussion. The first was the Stony Field discussion and potential funding, and that's exactly what it was, a discussion. We took no action on that item. There was also discussion, and I think was brought forward by Councilman Sheard, on a boat launch at Brittlebank Park. And as a part of our discussion, after talking with staff, it did not appear as though that would be feasible given the depth that would be needed for such a boat launch. The other item that we discussed was the Hampstead Square playground proposal. And I'll ask Jason if he can come and talk about that proposal, because we did vote to have the mayor to move forward with his exploratory on this project.
So if everybody's not familiar with Hampstead Square, it's one of the oldest dedicated park spaces in the city. Before it was bisected by streets, it was one full park. Nonetheless, there are 4 quadrants of the space. The 4th quadrant, which in the past was used by the former school there, somehow ended up on our tax records as owned by the school district. There's no real paper trail of any title transfers or deeds to that property. Nonetheless, the school district has a fence around that parcel, and the neighborhood association and some of the citizens have been requested that we do something with that to make it publicly accessible for a long time. So subsequent to that, we have a lease from the school district for maybe our own property, but so we do kind of have the control to use that property as we see fit. Now there's a reverter to it if they need to use it for a school. So anyway, so I brought this up to the mayor, the requests that we were getting from the neighborhood association and some of the people in the neighborhood, So one concept was to do this really cool playground in this space and open it up for the public and make it accessible, make it some other things. And so we kicked that around. The mayor asked us for the Recreation Committee to review it. And we were talking about funding. And so one of the things to fund the project was to use the TIF, which we heard about earlier. But per the approved list of projects identified to be funded from the Cooper River Bridge TIF, Hampstead Square was not in that. So the request was to bring that to council and fund a playground project for that parcel of the land from the TIF dollars.
So just as an explanation, I would share that the language I'm told regarding public expenditures in TIFs is to say it's proximate to the area. And in fact, this park area is about 1 block away from the corner, the southern part of the TIF, which includes the old cigar factory. So it's not far away. I would say it's proximate to the TIF district. And we had, when we first talked about expenditures from this district, we had set a big number just for park improvements, but it wasn't specific other than improvements to the Julian Devine Center. So we just wanted to share this with council and see if y'all were fine with us proceeding to study what we're going to do and come up with a budget and come back to you with it. But the thought was that it would come from the funding from that park allotment from the Cooper River TIF.
I just, that's the district I represent around there. When I heard about it, when the school system had it, then they put the fence around, they had the fence around it. Then they used to let the church use it. Then after the church, whatever happened with that, but they said it was owned by the city. Now we don't know who owns it, right?
Technically, that's correct.
We believe we own it, but to remove any doubt in the matter about our legal right and use, we also consummated a lease with the school district. Councilmember Lewis.
Well, in my younger days, I was PTA president of that school for 5 years. That's how I got into politics. And all we knew is that the city let us use that park, but it was owned by the city. And my 3 kids went to Walmart and Fraser. And the PTA made me where I'm at today.
Can we take your deposition?
So we were always told that the city owned that, but the city let the school district use it for a playground.
I believe that's true.
Well, and that's probably 50 years ago at least.
I think we need to check, Mr. Mayor, I think we need to check that out and take it over, and see, do the background check on it to see what's.
I think we've done a background check.
Hampstead Square was publicly dedicated, I think, in the late 1700s or early 1800s, before it was within the city of Charleston. The city of Charleston did not extend to Hampstead Square. There's case law that says, by dedication and acceptance, a municipality can sort of take over a publicly dedicated space. That's what I am assuming happened. But I have looked into Hampstead Square a lot, and I have found no deed to school district. There's more recent sort of deeds and leases. I guess everyone figures somebody else owns it. But Hampstead Square, I think, is publicly dedicated space and most likely was owned by the city of Charleston when it actually annexed that property in 1849.
What I'm afraid of, if the school board come back and say they want that property, then we'll have a fight going back and forth. See, that's why I'm saying we need to, even though we're going through this, we need to get this thing settled because we're going to have some problems.
Well, Mr. Mayor.
In our agreement, we if they were ever to come back wanting to use a property, they would have to use it as a playground. So they've already agreed to that. Councilmember Gregory.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, I mean, what we're doing right now is a part of what the committee wants to be done. It's basically exploratory right now, and the Recreation Committee did vote unanimously to have the mayor and parks move forward with exploring the possibility of such a playground. and then come back to recreation, and of course back to the body of a whole. And we voted unanimously to allow that to happen. That's a motion.
That's a motion. And a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, sir, for your report. Next is our Committee on Public Safety. Councilmember Shade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We met this afternoon at 2 o'clock to take out one issue, and that was to recommend for your approval an amendment to add a hate crime as our arsenal in enforcement of those folks who violate another section, but who violate it with an intent to intimidate another person because of some type of, that they're different. And that's just sort of a very simple way of saying it. The Chief Reynolds is here to answer any questions that you may have regarding what our intent here on this. It is interesting to note that the state does not have a hate crime statute. The federal government has a hate crime ordinance, and if we had a situation that met this definition of some kind of criminal behavior, we would have to rely on the federal government to prosecute that case. With this, we have this ability to prosecute somebody who violates what is defined as a hate crime in this ordinance. So I would recommend that we approve this.
Second. Recommend a motion.
Second. I would recommend that there be a motion to.
Second.
Well, then make the motion.
Yeah, make second.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Lewis.
I'm on that committee, and I certainly agree with the explanation that Chief gave us today, and I think that we ought to go on and pass this ordinance and let it be.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gregory. Just a question. Does this mirror the federal statute?
Well, Steve's here. He's the one who drafted this, and he can give you a better idea of whether it mirrors another ordinance from another municipality, but I don't know how it touches the federal statute.
It does not mirror the federal statute per se. I mean, the federal statute is more in the form of an enhancement. If your motive is because of a person's race, religion, sexual orientation, etc., your sentence can become higher. This itself, the way this is written, this is a completely separate crime, which you can be convicted of the underlying crime and this crime, and then they can be sentenced consecutive to one another. So it does enhance the punishment, but a jury would have to find you guilty on both offenses.
Thank you.
Chief, anything else?
Councilmember Waring.
Do you want to add anything, Chief?
That's what I was going to ask, if the Chief could come and give an
Chief Reynolds.
explanation.
Sure. I've got just a real quick overview of some of our discussion this afternoon in the Public Safety Committee. If I could just highlight a few numbers. The hate crime statistics were just released by the FBI, and the numbers are up for hate crimes 17% in 2017, with a 37% spike in crimes targeting Jews and Jewish institutions. And I'll just state what I think I know everybody agrees with, but as leaders from all walks of life and from all sectors, we need to condemn anti-Semitism, bigotry, hate whenever it occurs. Another thing is obviously recent events, things that have occurred around our country, things that we're all familiar with, to include things that have occurred here locally in recent years. We are one of a handful of states in the entire country that doesn't already have a hate crime statute in the state, and the passing of this bill, I think, shows solidarity and unity against hate. It helps us to report and create a mechanism, a framework for data collection, which doesn't currently exist, to bring some clarity when these types of events occur that don't fall in the federal statute. And I think this also sends a message that we care about a lot of groups that are listed in here that are victimized, and I think regularly we don't necessarily hear about it. And in some cases, it involves crime and victimization, which this would touch on within the city. And I think it creates a conversation at state levels, ultimately, to get a state statute, which I think is what we need, but this is a step in that direction. It's very simple. I think it's well written by Steve. It was well researched, and it's a statement from the city to continue this conversation.
Councilmember Moody.
Chief, help me understand, I mean, from what was just said, if I went out and beat somebody up, I mean, that would be a crime in and of itself. But if I did it for some other reason, then I could be charged with both, or could I not be, could I be charged with a hate crime and not the other crime, or does it have to be?
No,
I'm just curious as to how that works.
And Steve, you can speak to this, but it would be both. And it would be dependent upon the circumstances. Just like any case, the facts would have to dictate what the charges would be. There is a federal statute, something like Mother Emanuel, something of that magnitude. In other states where there's a state statute, the state statute would kick in. In this case, since we're absent of state statute, there's a big gap. This would address that gap, at least at the city level, for the short term, right now.
All right.
Councilmember Gregory and then Shade.
Does section 1-16 go far enough in terms of punitive damage? Because we have a ceiling, if I'm not mistaken, on the amount that one would pay if found guilty.
That is the absolute limit of our jurisdiction, is 1-16. It's 30 days in jail or $500, and that's the only punishment that our court can give.
And I just wanted that to be a part of the record, okay? Because that's not much.
Right. They can order restitution as well, but that's the limit of the magistrate's court. So,
Councilmember Seekings.
Just because you asked about whether there's a federal statute. The federal statute's an enhancement, so really you're getting a double sentence here. So you're really doubling on that sentence. If you're found guilty full, you then would be subject to 30 and 30, double city. So it's actually, it's the most they can do. They can't go any further. We're capped at 30 days. So
I just want to make sure we know what the punitive damages would be.
Right. That gets back to that home rule.
And I asked that question today, and it was because of the home rule.
That's right. They don't give us much rule in the home rule.
Right.
Okay. Would anyone else like to be heard? I want to thank Steve also for his fine work and Chief Reynolds' support of this measure. He spoke earlier at committee meeting very eloquently about this. He said, "I don't speak for the mayor," and I was ready to say, but Chief, what you just said, you did speak for the mayor, because you beautifully stated our abhorrence with prejudice and discrimination on all levels. And so I know the federal laws, are kind of fit for the terrible atrocities like happened in Pittsburgh and at Mother Emanuel, but this brings it down to a real level. If someone is harassing someone because of their sexual orientation or because of their race, or gets in an altercation and it was clear that it was about discrimination and hate, that we won't tolerate or accept hate at even those at those levels, and that's why I feel like this ordinance is important for our city. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is our License Committee. Back to Councilmember Gregory.
Okay. The License Committee met, and it's the same issue. We reviewed the existing ordinance with amendments, and that was to codify the 2%. And our committee voted unanimously to support it, and I move that we do.
Second. Motion, second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, Committee on Public Works, Councilmember Waring.
Mayor, I will take them in parts. Acceptance and dedications of right-of-way, AI, and 2, I move approval of those. Passed the committee unanimous.
Second.
This is for A1 and 2?
That's an AI and double I.
Okay. We're going ahead. We have a motion and a second to accept those. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Under item B, 1 and 2, we had a hearty discussion on separating the Stormwater Management Department from all public safety. Very good input from council members. As a matter of fact, Councilman Wagner and Griffin added to the conversation and wanting to know the costs, wanting to know the structure, wanting to know, I guess, tangible reasons why. But we wanted to give it first reading approval. It passed the committee unanimously while we continue to, and the mayor's going to get those answers to us. In other words, obviously we're going to increase costs because we're going to have another director, another department head. We wanted to know what that was. So, Councilman Wagner, if you want to add to some of your points or not. Very good points were made all around the table, but it passed unanimous because this department has grown and grown, and it's really too large. It really does, and we need to have special focus on drainage. So, passed unanimous, and I would ask that I put that motion on the floor.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
And then items B, 3, and 4, Charleston Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan update passed unanimous, as well as the Council of Governments Regional Stormwater Policy also passed unanimous. And I move the approval of that.
We have a motion and a second to accept those. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. And that was all of it, correct? Okay.
Yeah, update 6.
Okay. So we covered a number of citizens.
Right, I started to say that. There were a number of citizens that, I won't say citizen complaints, but seriously flooding issues, primarily in Councilman Shahid's district, because he put them on the agenda. Great turnout from the citizenry explaining their problems with pictures, and you'd be amazed at how much of these citizens know their problems, in some cases better than we. But again, not real, I don't think, really expensive problems to fix, but right along the lines of larger ditches, in some cases ditches that have been filled in by neighbors where we didn't have approved easements, where we need to get established easements so water can get out of people's yards and into the outfalls that they should go in. So ditches, in some cases larger pipes, but there's a common theme there. We actually ran into one where we actually have an easement, and we'll be able to go in and clean that out. So as I said to Councilman Shahid, every council member around this table can come up with a list like that, and we've got to somehow find a priority in how we go about doing that, because we really need to get that list from everybody and see which ones have the high priority, in particular where water is coming into people's homes. Nobody's house should flood because of a ditch that needs to be dug or widened, or a pipe that needs to be cleaned or enlarged. And I think that's something we can accomplish hopefully in 2019.
Absolutely. Councilmember Shade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Waring. So I asked for this update on about a half dozen projects that have been floating around since around 2016 with several of these properties, and a lot of this was a result of the storm that we had on July 20th. And these folks came, and it was important for them to hear the update from our Department of Public Works and to take part into this process. But the one thing I didn't want the record to be void on was that they were very appreciative of the work that the staff members had done and the response. In particular, the Gilberts, who have a very terrible problem, even with what I would call a normal flood. We're talking about Frank Newman coming out on a Saturday, bringing pumps out and responding to their needs. So I just wanted the record to be clear that our department does a lot of good work, and they are very responsive to our citizens. But these issues are not multi-million-dollar issues. These are issues that can be addressed, that we got to just redirect it a little bit, and I think that they were very satisfied and pleased with the response that they got from the committee and from the staff members. So thank you all for hearing them out.
All right, I think that was all for that report. Next is Committee on Ways and Means. Councilmember White.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, we have our bills up for second reading. We got 1 through 9, and this will be for second reading. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on any of those? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Now for third reading and ratification. We got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. I got to work on signing these things, but let's see. We do have at least one bill up for first reading, or two bills. One is regarding the plan unit development, which produces our property for the North Pitchfork. And the second one is, well, let's vote on number one. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Okay. Second. And a second. Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. And next we have a proposed ordinance regarding our override with the Planning Commission. We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Nay.
Okay, so number 2, Jay. The mayor?
And the mayor.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what? Okay.
All right. And I think that, let me just sign these while we're in session, if y'all don't mind. It'll just take a second. So our next meeting is Thursday morning at 9 o'clock, a workshop meeting where we'll present the budget to you along with some proposed budget changes for a new stormwater department. And then the next meeting after that will be November 27th. I got one more here. We want this to be legal, and it is. Is there any further business to come before us? Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much.